Welcome to Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, and yesterday all the stars were out. John Gosden coming in. Frankie Dettori finally made his way. If you could follow him on the social media, you'd see his flight went swimmingly well. Here's a look at Joseph O'Brien, Graham Motion, Brad Cox, Chad Brown, all coming in from the eastern seaboard in Kentucky. And then the equine stars as well hitting the racetrack. We saw Sister Charlie, your favorite for the filly and mare turf, stretching her legs. Bricks and Mortar trying the 1.5 mile in the Breeders' Cup turf this year. And Imperial Hint, a talented sprinter who's going to give Matoli all he can handle. Selcourt was kind enough to wear a GoPro for us, as you could see just exactly what it was like to hit the training track here at Santa Anita, host of the 2019 Breeders' Cup, as Breakfast with the Breeders' Cup starts right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. Christine and I, well, we just had breakfast, but we hope you're enjoying yours. This is the final episode. We are the last chocolate in the Advent calendar, as tomorrow begins 2 days of Christmas in the Sport of Kings.
So excited to be here, and it's been so much fun just to watch these horses train over the last week and a half or so. Of course, some of them came in early, but everybody is on the grounds now, and it's been wonderful to watch them train. These are the best horses in the world, and they look like it with each and every gallop, each and every work, ready for 2 days of championship racing here.
I know. It starts tomorrow. You can certainly feel the anticipation as it's all coming to a head over the next 72 hours here in Arcadia, California. Here's what's coming up. We're going to have a cup of coffee with the voice of the Breeders' Cup for NBC, premier track announcer Larry Colmus. Aiden and Anthony, the Derby winner, hits the track with the other O'Brien charges. And Joaquin gets tongue-tied in our final installment of Grooming Joaquin.
This might be the best one, too. Looking forward to the last segment of the series.
Is it bad of me to admit that that's my favorite part of the show so far, is grooming Joaquin? Speaking of Joaquin and Caleb and Michelle Yu, let's check in with our reporters here on the final edition of Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
Hey guys, good morning to you. Great to have you with us for our final show of our Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup here at Santa Anita. Caleb Keller joining us for the first time as well with Michelle Yu. Caleb, had a chance to see some horses jog off the track right here. Who have you seen so far this morning?
Well, one horse in particular that I was looking for, and that's Mr. Money, right? Now, Mr. Money only got in a couple days ago, and I think there's a reason for that. This horse trains so aggressively in the morning, he can almost be a runoff. So Brett Calhoun knew that he was bringing a powder keg to town. He didn't want him around these top-level horses for a couple weeks. So we've seen Steve Asmussen come in a month early. We've seen Mr. Money come in a couple days ago. So there's all different types of plans to try to find a winning recipe.
Michelle, I think you've seen pretty much every horse on the ground so far. What are you going to be up to today?
I'm going to go try and find some horses I haven't seen in a couple of days, right? The first kind of days we canvass who is here, and then as the more horses ship in, we kind of get to other horses. Now I want to like recycle and go back to the beginning, right? So if there's a horse that you feel like you haven't seen, make sure you tweet us, hashtag QA at the cup, and tell me, Michelle, I need to see blank, and I'll go find him and, try to feed him something.
Well, Mike, as you said, we had a chance to catch up with trainer John Gosden, Frankie Dettori, and also Joseph O'Brien back at the quarantine barn. So I'm going to make my way back to the quarantine barn. We're expecting some of the Aiden O'Brien horses to be hitting the track a little bit later on today as well. So we've seen plenty of horses so far during our Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup shows, but there's also plenty of horses, international horses, that we have not seen just yet. So we're going to break up. We're going to split up. We're going to roam the backside. So for now, we'll go back to Mike and Christina on the set.
All right, excellent work so far this weekend. Can't wait to see what's in store from our reporters here on this Thursday. Oh, happy Halloween, by the way.
Indeed, yeah, happy Halloween.
I forgot there's a holiday. My kids are going to have a great day as well. Let's take a look at what's going on the racetrack right now. It's always a bustle of activity leading up to the Breeders' Cup, and there's a look at Secret Spice for Richie Baltas. She's one of those few horses, well, not few, but she's one of those horses that has the advantage of the walk up and run. Looks like she's going to do a dance up and run here in the work.
Feeling herself right now and just refusing a little bit to go ahead and move forward and break off as soon as they got away from the pony there. But the rider just going to go ahead and try to keep her moving forward. Look, she's a fresh type of filly. You can see that from the way that she runs her races. She has tactical speed on the engine, and here she is in a very spirited gallop that we're seeing right now. Johnny Velasquez is going to be aboard her for the first time in the distaff for Little Red Feather and Bobby Flay, and I think we can all agree that the Little Red Feather Breeders' Cup celebration from Singletary was one of the greatest celebrations of all time when he won the Breeders' Cup Mile. So for that and many other reasons, several folks rooting for this filly. But I think, Mike, just looking at her and the race and Midnight Bisou and what she has to get by, I think she needs to relax a little more if she's going to be effective, because we are adding a bit more distance for her. We're going the mile and an eighth in the distaff, whereas she's been second in her last couple of starts at the mile and a 16th. And I think at the top level with these horses that do have the stamina to go on and get that full distance, she needs to rate, relax, and try to make a move a little bit later if possible if she is going to take down Midnight Bisou.
And it looks like that last 16th of a mile has been, her undoing in those 3 graded stakes events that she's finished second in. So it'll be a task without a doubt, but she does make a great appearance. I don't know really what I'm looking at. You and Simon have far more experience with this. They all look great to me, but they all look great to everybody.
Yeah, she looks great out there. And as you say, I mean, these horses, they all should look great. This is the Breeders' Cup. You're not going to run a horse if they aren't in peak physical condition at this point. And she is a little fresh, but I think that that's a good thing. And, when we do get into the cooler temperatures, and this is the coldest morning that we've had here in the last week and a half or so, horses feel it. They start to feel themselves. They feel good. The nice, cool, brisk air on their backs and a little bit of wind, which we have had over the last couple of days. That kind of puts a little extra pep in their step. I love the energy that you're seeing from her. We saw her act up just a little bit before they kind of began this gallop, but that's just a good feeling filly kind of throwing her weight around out there.
Well, she gets to walk up and run because she's based at Santa Anita. The exact opposite of that is Dream Shot. It's coming in from Great Britain and Ireland. And this is a look at the colt. Loses the rider. This is just moments ago. Rider is okay. The outrider did corral this one, but you see getting a little squirrely there, to say the least. Gets away from the rider. You can see the jockey's fine, but not exactly what you want to see heading into the Breeders' Cup, but you can see doesn't really take off. And the outrider is going to come in right now and corral this colt quite quickly.
Yeah, definitely not what you want to see. And he kind of saw something there around the turn that he was shying and spooking away from. The rider doing everything that he or she could to hold on and to maintain contact, because that's one thing you do want to try to do. The last thing you want is for these horses to get loose, but he did not get far, luckily.
For a 2-year-old horse who's still intact, I mean, this is quite docile. I mean, he really kind of mellows out, and he acts quite professionally despite losing the rider there. It could have been a situation where they're chasing him all around the place. So he took care of himself, and with 8 starts under his belt, you would hope he's starting to get that professionalism of an older horse.
Well, and anytime you go to a new place, horses are going to look around, and that's part, this is a very new situation for him. I mean, he's coming over from overseas, would be, training at a yard, wouldn't have horses coming at him from both directions, training there as you do here. We go around against the rail in the direction that he's going, but then they go the opposite way from the outside rail. So all of that looks very different to these European horses when they come here to the States, and especially to a 2-year-old. He's just flown halfway across the world, been in that quarantine barn, come out, and it's sort of a great big world out there for him that he's experiencing. And so it's understandable to kind of shy away from things and to look around, but you want him to get this out of his system now. You want him to take a good look around this course. Anything that he might, and he's still trying to act a little bit, anything that he might want to have a second look at, you want to take a couple of passes by there, because the last thing you want is to have a big crowd, all the energy, all the noise out the atmosphere of Friday, and for him to start not maintaining focus on his racing and on the performance that is needed from him to win.
Look, like all of us transplants here to California, there's a lot to distract you. Let's take another look here. We've got on the track right now that's sharing from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. This was just moments ago as she's getting a chance to stretch her legs.
I really like this filly. She has a beautiful pedigree. I mean, if you want to look for a Breeders' Cup winner, how about a daughter of Speightstown, a sprint winner from the Breeders' Cup out of Shared Account, a filly and mare turf winner who was 46-1 for Graham Ocean. Graham Ocean trains this filly. He knows the family, knows the dam very, very well. She's run 3 times so far, a couple of wins. And, I follow Thoroughgraph, and I know you do as well. Her numbers are right there in line.
Yeah.
She's competed in the Salima at Laurel last out. And I think you have to make sure you give that race enough credit. She might not have been in New York, which tends to be a very productive race if you're coming to the Juvenile Fillies turf. She may not have been out here in California, but she has all the ability. And I think you're going to get a price on her. She's 12-1 on the morning line. Manny Franco going to be aboard. And what I like about her, I watched a couple of her recent works as well. She's just very strong. She's in the bridle, and you can even see this in the gallop. That rider's taken a real firm hold here, trying to keep her under wraps, because she has a lot of energy. She has puts a lot of forth into her training. Really seems like she gives 100%, whether she is out here in the mornings or competing in the afternoon.
Yeah, don't look now. Aaron Wellman's listening to you talk about his horse, okay? Just shh. At any rate, there's a look at her crossing the wire, and she's certainly a physical specimen. But, you know, it looks like her head is really together, the way that she has gone through the conditions. And she, you know, her first win came in a situation where they came off the turf, and she was on a surface that's not her preferred, and then she wins quite well in this Olympic.
Well, and I like that because I think, you know, when you're talking about fillies especially, not only are you training them physically, but you also do want to train their mind. You don't want to throw too much at them too soon. And as you say, she seems like a real professional in the afternoons. She's feeling good right now and you know, throwing her head around a little bit, but this isn't anything bad, any kind of bad acting. I think she just is fresh and feeling good ahead of her race.
Here's a look at Kamari. We actually walked right past Kamari on our way in, didn't we? I believe that horse was just in the saddling paddock, and there's a look for going for the juvenile turf sprint. A very talented 2-year-old that has a good measure of ability, and now, you know, getting the feet on the track and getting the feel for things.
Yeah, I love this filly, and I think a lot of people do. She's 7-2 on the morning line. You're going to have a pretty good price on the favorite in this race. She may well be the favorite at post time. She's a daughter of Munnings. She won her maiden first time out by 15 lengths at Keeneland, going 4.5 furlongs. It's basically the length of the stretch. They went immediately to Royal Ascot for the Queen Mary. She was second in that full field of 25, and she's come back with back-to-back wins. One in the Bolton Landing, where she beat Abscond, who will take on the fillies going longer, the juvenile fillies turf. And then she was the winner of the Indian Summer at Keeneland. I was there that day. She has an incredible ability not only to set fast fractions early, but just to finish like a rocket. The acceleration we saw from her at Keeneland was one of the best turns of foot that I saw there the entire meet.
Let's check in with Caleb Keller.
I can tell you, Mike, that we are enjoying the WinStar Breakfast Pavilion here at Clocker's Corner with Elliot Walden and Tio Alking here. What a partnership they had last year, of course, with Justify, the Triple Crown champion. And Tio, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about Yoshida. You guys had a horse that was live in the Classic last year, ran fourth. How do you feel like this year's Classic sets up for Yoshida?
Well, we just went and have a look at him. He looked as good as what he's going to be a champion.
He's so honest throughout his career, right? He's been second and third, and he's even won a Grade 1. What's going to be different about Saturday to push him over the top?
Well, you had to ask Elliot about that. I just arrived.
All right, Elliot, I heard you're the man. Plus, you got the Yoshida Breeders' Cup vest here. So let's talk about him. Again, it was only about, a length and a half last year that he lost out for the Classic. What's different for him this year?
Well, I think he's doing extremely well. You know, we just saw him in the paddock. He's full of energy, and you know, he's doing well. And you want to come into a race like this doing well. Your horse is doing well. Some horses aren't. I mean, you know, you come at this time of the year. It's been a long year for a lot of horses. You like to see a horse thriving, and he's thriving. And hopefully that'll be enough to get him over the top. He's run well his whole career, like you said. He's been a Grade 1 winner on the turf and the dirt. And hopefully he puts it all together Saturday and gets back to the winning form he had in the Woodward last year.
Yeah, I'm thinking about these classics that we've seen here at Santa Anita. Haven't they all been mostly one gate to wire? I mean, they say the track's different. It's heavier. It's more tiring. Do you feel like that's going to help your charge?
Well, we got Mike Smith in the irons, which is we'd love to have Mike Smith. We've been very lucky with Mike Smith with Justify. He actually won the Breeders' Cup Classic with Drosselmeyer in 2011 for us. So it's up to Mike. Mike knows the track better than anybody, and Mike knows where to put him. And this horse will come with a really good kick. He's doing extremely well.
Teal, of course, you guys had the Triple Crown champion last year with Justify, and I get the sense from Bob Baffert that maybe his most confident horse this weekend is Improbable. Now, he's been a beaten favorite a couple times this year in some big races. How do you feel about Improbable going into the dirt mile?
We just saw him this morning doing a 20 around, and I think he's looking really good. Yeah. Hopefully he'll jump out good.
How about that city zip, Elliot? I mean, we try to go mile and a quarter, mile and 3/16. He's been right there, similar to Yoshida. What needs to go different for him?
Well, he had to get out of the gate. You know, the gate's been his nemesis this year. I think in the Pennsylvania Derby, he blew up right when they sprung the latch. He stood great for about 10 seconds and just got a little anxious right when they sprung the latch. And you know, he's got to get out of the gate well. If he gets out of the gate well, a mile's right in his wheelhouse.
And then finally, T, I wanted to ask you, I think you had very poignant remarks to Bob Costas on NBC for the Preakness when you were talking about the impact of Justify on China.
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, a year on, and honestly, unfortunately, that the Justify did not have a chance to even participate in British Cup. But the racehorse industry itself led on to some senior Chinese official that visit America. And I think that the influence of American racing is going worldwide, especially China right now, to justify. Thank you.
You guys have been great for the game. Legendary Silks. And guys, go get some breakfast. This is your all's tent after all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, just once in my lifetime, I want to have a conversation where somebody's asking me about horses of that ilk, right? As if I own them.
Right.
Yoshida's an outstanding animal. He's been remarkably consistent, and it just seems like he's getting faster and faster as he gets older. You would expect thoroughbreds to peak at age 5, but he certainly has.
Yeah, you're seeing a real improvement in his speed figures. You're seeing some consistency this year in what he runs as far as the numbers that he's putting up. And no disrespect to anyone that has ridden him so far, but I love the fact that Mike Smith is getting aboard this horse, because I think naturally Yoshida wants to be so far back that he gives himself so much to do. And at the grade 1 level, these horses aren't coming back to you. He has the ability to get a mile and a quarter. And if Mike can just somehow get him to be a little closer, he has all the ability in the world to win this race. It just needs to be timed correctly.
There's Sheki Shabazz, turf sprinter here, who's, look, a horse that's caught my eye and many others. And he certainly didn't catch my eye by what he does on the track in the morning, because, once again, this is not my wheelhouse. But what he's done on the track in the afternoons, he's got some talent.
He does indeed, and he looks good out there. And, you know, I like seeing a horse that's kind of relaxed enough to just go ahead and sit there and stand for a little while. Not all of them have that ability to come out in the morning and just to relax and to stand and to kind of take it all in, and especially a turf sprinter, you know, a horse that you would expect to really be on the engine. And so this is a nice shot and a nice kind of overall indicator of his demeanor. Back-to-back pretty good races for him since Jason Service took over. He was a $25,000 claimer at Saratoga back in July of this summer. Jason immediately put him into stakes competition. He won the Lucky Coin there at 5.5 furlongs in gate-to-wire fashion. He's always had a little bit of speed, but they've really put some more speed into him. He's 2 for 2 at the distance, second behind Final Frontier, who he will take on again coming up this weekend. And I think he's going to be one of those that is right there on the engine. He breaks fast and does not look back.
Here's a look at Ngahe, as Scott Blasi was referring to. Engage, getting a little gate work here in anticipation of the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Let's have a look. So this is a live look, taking him to the gate. And, you know, Simon was touching on this over the last couple of days, just in that you see a different approach to gate schooling with the West Coast trainers versus the East Coast trainers. The West Coast trainers will often walk right through or go ahead and come jogging out of the front of the gate and then go on with their training, whereas you're seeing here, it's a little bit more East Coast style to go ahead and back up. Walk in, stand, relax, and then back out of the gate, come around and begin your training in that manner. So that's what we're seeing here from Engage. And the sprint, for me, Mike, is one of those races that I would believe anybody that has a case on any horse in there. I have the horse that I like, but if you want to sell me on another one, I'm right there picking up what you're putting down, because they all have the credentials to win.
So Lord Glitters in the mile, walking out with a contender from the juvenile Phillies turf, Living in the Past. There's a pair of them there as they are heading from the backstretch to the racetrack. Yeah, by the way, I know we're probably going to promote the online seminar from Thoroughgraph at some point during the day, but that horse we were just looking at has a great Thoroughgraph pattern. If the numbers aren't high or aren't low enough, I should say, or fast enough, the pattern, though, pairing up zeros like he did, is going to be very good. I'm talking about Engage. These two hitting the track right now. A beautiful gray there.
I'm interested to see what happens in the juvenile Phillies turf just as far as the pace goes, because I don't think there is much in there. And for that reason, you know, I've come back a couple times, maybe even to Eddie Keneally's filly Abscond, whereas you're talking about the speed figures. She might need to improve a little bit on figures, but she has sprinter-type speed. She was second behind Kamari, who we touched on a little bit earlier on in the show. She flies away from the gate. So I'm just going to be very intrigued by this race in general and who wants to go ahead and get out there and try to take control of it, because it seems like it's there for the taking on the
Right.
front end. And to me, the most logical horse is Abscond, but all these riders can read the past performances too, and maybe someone else is going to go ahead and try for it.
Yeah, the two things about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf is one, who's going to win, and two, how do you pronounce the name of Jeff Mullen's horse in there? Here's a look at Spice Perfection. I know, look, I don't want to say too much, but Joaquin was talking a lot about this horse in our pre-show meeting, so I'm sure he's going to have something to add here at some point. But at this point, I mean, and just give me an idea, somebody who doesn't know anything about works and training and whatnot. I mean, at this point, they're all just kind of getting out to the track just for their daily walk or daily jog or whatever. It's just to kind of keep them in the routine, and you really just kind of want them winding up for the big day.
Yeah, exactly. And all of your serious work has been done. I mean, a week and a half, 2 weeks or so ago, that's when you put in your real big work in advance of the race. Then you'd have one more work this past weekend, which we showed you a lot of those as we kind of began this series. And then you're going to have a couple days of jogging, maybe just one day to jog, and then gallop on into the race. And, with the sprinters, and this was a pretty remarkable performance that you're looking at here in the TCA. She had trouble away from the gate, very awkward. She recovers, but then is going to end up kind of bottled up down along the inside here and just didn't really have any room to run. And I think for a filly, this can be a little bit intimidating to be in that kind of position, especially after rushing up and after that sort of awkward gate break. She naturally wants to be a little closer, and I think she might be a little closer come this weekend, but she's going to go ahead and end up splitting horses here and really battle on. She'll win it by a head. She matched her career best thoroughgraph figure in this race, and it was also off of freshening, which I like, because otherwise you might be a little concerned that she could regress off of a race like that. She is going to use that race to propel herself forward, to move forward. The only concern I have with her, Mike, and I know that you look a lot at the angle of the improving 4-year-old, because I think she does look like that. She has also run her best races at Keeneland. So are we seeing her over the surface that she loves best, and can she run this kind of race and that kind of number at home here at Santa Anita? Or is she this improving 4-year-old that is going to back it up and run that race here?
The only reason I would think that she can bring that form back to her home track here is because of what she did in the Barbara Fritchie, because she put up as good of a number as she ever has in that thing. And so that performance leads to me to believe it's not just Keeneland. That was her first start as a 4-year-old, who's a horse or an angle that I love, is especially fillies. The first time they come out at 4, they usually run their career best at that point, and hopefully they continue to improve. There's another look. There's another look at Shecky Shabazz, and then I keep seeing a grinning Aaron Greider on the back of Kamari walking by, and he just came by the paddock here a few moments ago. But, yeah, Shecky Shabazz, look, Shecky Shabazz has a great thoroughgraph pattern, and he actually repeats it going into this race. It looks like he's going to run a new top. I don't know that that's going to be fast enough to beat the contenders he's got to take with, but when you see that Jerry Brown seminar, he'll talk about these things. And it's not just the figures with thoroughgraph, it's how you use them.
That's on my docket for today, listening to the seminar.
I'm probably going to listen to it while handing out candy for Halloween. Don't get scared. We're coming.
Kids.
Yeah, here. Don't be scared. We're coming right back here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. The sun is rising here on the last day that doesn't have Breeders' Cup racing this week. Whoa, Shecky Shabazz wants us to notice, and there he is as he throws the rider.
Ooh, and the
the
bridle
bridle
came
comes
off.
off. This is what's in the air? Is it the cold weather? I mean, we've had a couple of horses getting squirrely here.
We have, but that was an incredible job to hold on. But luckily, the bridle didn't come off completely, and the reins didn't come off completely. They still had the reins around his neck. Going to go ahead and be able to get that back on. And luckily, he was pretty agreeable to the whole circumstance after dropping the rider.
Yeah, Shecky Shabazz is certainly feeling himself leading into the Breeders' Cup. He's got about 48 hours before he hits the track in the afternoon for what will be the biggest race in his career. But Shecky Shabazz certainly feeling good today. So we've seen horses out on the racetrack. No serious work to be done this close to race day. But we did have some major names doing some work earlier this week we're going to take a look at. Midnight Bisou, the biggest name of note, as she's looking for nothing less than Horse of the Year honors with a victory in the Breeders' Cup this year.
She's just been so incredible this year, hasn't she? 7 for 7. And if any of the horses out there competing this weekend, you want to call them a machine, she is it. She has not let up off the gas pedal the entire year, and she's had a busy year. She's traveled, she's run 7 times, and it doesn't seem to have taken anything out of her. I was, looking at her at one point when they sent her to the race at Monmouth when it was so warm there, and
the Molly Pitcher,
Molly Pitcher, just thinking, gosh, I wonder, is this ever going to catch up to her? Because that to me seemed like the circumstance where maybe it would, and it didn't. She went clear by a length that day, came back with one of her career bests in the personal ensign after that, then to the Beldame with a 3 1/4 length convincing win over Wildcat. And this is her most recent work, 4 furlongs in 50 and 4. I took a look at this earlier this morning, just kind of previewing. And what I love about her is she's just so smart. She really wants to do more. She's been here for a long time. The Blasi horses, or the Asmussen horses, I should say, were some of the first to arrive here. And I think that's going to do her a lot of good come race day, because we've talked a lot this entire season and the last several months about how the track is a little bit deeper than we're used to here at Santa Anita. And I think the fact that she's been able to train over it for such a long time is really going to benefit her. And like I say, just a machine. She wants to do more. She's clearly on her toes, on edge, and ready to fire another big one this weekend.
Look, Daisy Dukes, bikinis on top. Don't forget, she was a California girl before she started this campaign this year, and she began her career at Del Mar and Santa Anita. So she knows her way around this racetrack. But you're right. I mean, as consistent a filly as we've seen, and I know Monomoy Girl hasn't been on the racetrack this year for her to contend with, and that was kind of her nemesis in 2018. But she has certainly gotten faster at age 4. Make no mistake about it. She is a better animal.
She absolutely has, and you can see it from the speed figures. She set herself up very well back last year at 3, and she has gone ahead and improved on those numbers this year. And she's just, as I say, so smart. If you go back and watch the Beldame, at one point around the turn, she kind of cocks her head to the side and she looked at Wildcat, and as soon as she clocked her as competition, never let her get a nose in front. This filly is all racehorse. She knows what her job is out there, and if you hook her, she won't let you go by.
Yeah, well, Olate's hooked her quite a few times, so many times that they're tired of seeing her and they opt to go in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Here's her blowout from a couple of days ago, 36 and 4 for the 3 furlongs, as they're just trying to get a little speed into her. She has been very, very good. She's going against the boys, and for a couple of reasons. I think it's probably more for the mile and a quarter than to avoid Midnight Bisou, because she's got to take on some pretty stiff competition as well in the Classic, obviously. But she should love the 10 furlongs.
She absolutely does. I mean, she's 3 for 3 at the mile and a quarter distance. She's a daughter of Medaglia d'Oro, and if you pull the stats as far as the entire field, he has the strongest percentage of winners at a mile and a quarter. And just look at her, that big, long body, that long stride. I know that there are several companies that analyze a horse's stride length. I'd be so curious to see what hers is, because she really does keep her head low, and she uses her neck quite a lot in her stride, in the reach that you get from her. That's what enables her to cover so much ground out there. And that was one of the remarks that I heard so many times about American Pharoah and why he had such a beautiful stride, was because he carried his head low, used his neck, used his entire shoulder muscles to kind of help, along with the hind end, propel himself forward. She does that. She is every bit of a mile and a quarter, and her thoroughgraph numbers are as good or better than most of the males in this race. She is absolutely a threat to win the Classic and to be the second female to do so.
Not only that, she has a tight pair coming into this, which is another great pattern. So there's a look at Elate. Paradise Woods, she's the one, she's so tough to figure out because on her best day, she can beat anyone. On her worst day, she doesn't seem to run at all, and you never know which one you're going to get. Here's a look at her. I mean, when she's in full flight like she is here, she's something to behold. She got this 5 furlongs in a minute flat.
Yeah, she is, and as you say, she's just very temperamental, and unfortunately for her, she drew the rail in the distaff, and I think looking at her last race in the Zenyatta, what Abel Cedillo did best was kind of stay out of her way and keep her out in the clear and to the outside, and John Sheriffs has even remarked about that in some interviews and been pretty candid about the fact that that is kind of where she wants to be, and she gets a bee in her bonnet if she isn't and doesn't want to give her best. And unfortunately, being stuck at the rail, she's most likely not going to have that chance to get to the position she wants to be. If she's going to, she's going to have to drop back, hope at some point she can angle out and then get into the clear to sit that catbird seat. I just don't see how the trip is going to work out for her. The worst possible scenario was her drawing the rail.
Well, you can't fault John Sheriffs. He's doing a fantastic job. It's not easy to get a horse from Richard Mandela and then try to get them to those same levels, and he's done that.
Absolutely has. And, Richard did such a beautiful job with her to kind of start and get her going and, cultivated that mind, which is, she's been a little bit of a project. And I think John Sheriffs just picked up the baton and has carried on. Yeah,
and Abel Cedillo rode her capably last time out in the Zenyatta. If you don't know Abel Cedillo, you should. He's one of the hottest riders here in Southern California, and we take a closer look.
Me and my family, well, Guatemala, we don't have like those opportunities we have that they have here in United States. I didn't decide to be a jockey. I was just like, well, I'm gonna gallop, like exercise rider. I went to the racetrack in Calder, at Florida, and then there I meet a couple of trainers, and they were like, oh, you know what? If you wanna ride, we're gonna help you. I have a aunt in Oakland, and that's in Northern California. And then one of the trainers told me like, oh, there is a racetrack there at San Francisco, Golden Gate Fields. So I went to a Jeff Bundy barn. I breed all his horses every weekend, and he's like, you wanna get your license, get your license. And I told him, you know what, I'm gonna try it. So I started there at Golden Gate. I take the title for 3 years. Jonathan Wong, he gave me a lot of help. And then one day he told me, hey, one of the agents at Southern California, he's a really good friend with Doug O'Neill, and he wants to talk to you if you decide to go Southern California.
I've been watching Abel ride up north, and he just was, looked like he had all the qualities to be down here. So I knew Doug would ride Abel if he came down here.
This was the time to come here because I have a lot of good help and a lot of the trainers that helped me too. So I was like, I think that's a good time to move my tag down there.
He has the mindset that he wants to be on top. He wants to go ahead and take care of his family, and he wants to just work, and he works hard. He's got a really good work ethic, and I've not had any riders that have that work ethic.
But today belongs to Mongolian Groom. Wire to wire in the awesome again under Abel Cedillo.
That was awesome. Now I win the great one. I was like so excited. I was like, is this me or it's just a dream? When I got on Paradise Woods, she's a nice filly. Like, I think it's the best filly I've been riding. When it's time to move, I move her and she moves really good.
Paradise Woods wins the Zenyatta.
And I was like, wow, I win that race too? Yeah. My dream now is like, win the Breeders' Cup in Kentucky Derby. And I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take a chance to get more than I do right now.
That weekend really was a coming out party for Abel Cedillo as he introduced himself to the racing world in a big way. He is a hard-working rider, and he's got a lot of talent, and, the sky is the limit for him. He'll be on Paradise Woods' back for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. Midnight Bisou at 6 to 5, probably the most appropriately priced morning line favorite on the whole weekend.
Yeah, I thought Frank Miramati really captured that weekend very well in his call, and just, it really was, as you say, the coming out party for Abel Cidio. He'll be aboard Paradise Woods, aboard Mongolian Groom as well. So good luck to him. And hats off to Tom Canoes, who you saw there in the piece as well. They are both out there hustling each and every morning, working horses and earning every bit of the success that they have had. And it's not an easy colony to crack into. And they came right before Del Mar, too, which is, I think, the hardest time to try and kind of get a little bit of momentum. They've done a fabulous job together, and wish them all the best of luck this weekend. But they're taking on one of the heavy hitters of the entire 2 days of racing here with Midnight Bisou. Abel Cidio, let's see what he's got, because he's got his work cut out for him from the rail with Paradise Woods.
Okay, a little bit earlier you saw Shecky Shabazz getting shecky with it. We have his trainer standing by right now with Michelle Yu.
I'm joined by Jason Service, and Shaky Shabazz had a very eventful morning. Can you kind of walk us through what happened?
Yeah, he's really sharp right now, sprinting, you're not galloping the distances, and he's a little quirky, and he kind of got up and sat down a little bit, but thankfully everything's fine.
Originally, when he first came on the track, he seemed like he was the patient sort. He stood for a long time. So does he kind of have a mentality that he is kind of cool and collected until something sets him off, or is he normally a little bit more high-strung?
He's a little high-strung, but, he's home. He gets in his routine. He's much better. He's going to run in a couple of days. He's pretty sharp right now.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Shaky Shabazz, guys, a little bit of activity on the track, but got back to the barn safe and sound.
Feeling good, kind of like I am. It's really cool. I didn't realize you get to see like every Breeders' Cup horse
right
They're right there. We're going to take a break, but when we return, we'll take another look at that work from Mackenzie and his final tune-up for the Breeders' Cup Classic. The thing is, there's a huge breakfast marquee right there, and yet they're still crowding the window, Rose's window at Clocker's Corner. It gives you an idea of just how good the ham and eggs are there.
Elbow to elbow at Clocker's Corner and in the breakfast marquee, courtesy of Windstar and Phasic Tipton. And it's just been like this each and every day, Mike, and it's been growing and building, like this crescendo of arrivals of both the equines and their human connections. It's such a joy to walk around and see so many friendly faces from all over the world. Everybody here for the same goal, And the hope is there for every single one of them still today as we approach 2 days of World Thoroughbred racing.
Well, the hope for McKenzie is that he gets that final furlong, right? I mean, the question is whether or not a 1.25 miles is in his wheelhouse. This 5-furlong work was in his wheelhouse as he went well in 1 minute and 1/5. He's been the highest-rated handicap horse all year long. He's been number 1 in the Breeders' Cup rankings all year long. Can he get the job done? He is the morning line favorite for the Classic, but he is a morning line favorite I have not heard one handicapper, not a single one, say they were picking.
That's a good point. And are we all going to be embarrassed by the Hall of Famer Bob Baffert at come post time for the Classic? I mean, look at McKenzie. This is a typical Baffert work. He is a total pro. They pushed him a little bit for a good finish here. You're going to see that acceleration. And I think Bob knows, I got to get into him a little bit because this is going to be the toughest test that he has faced. A good gallop out, which is what you see very often from the Bob Baffert horses. He really wants to see them finishing all the way through the turn. And just a great work from McKenzie there back on the 28th. So that will set him up very well. But as you say, we have to see about that last furlong. And it does seem like he might be a little better at the 1 1/8 miles. And so, talking about the horses like Elate, who's 3 for 3 at the distance, and others that, have been able to accomplish it so far, I think it makes McKenzie a little bit vulnerable.
So here's a look at War of Will. He went 4 furlongs about 6 days ago at 47-2. So War of Will, one of the better stories going into this year's Derby, as Gary Barber told the story about how he named this horse. It was a War of Will, and his untimely divorce from MGM Studios. He took this horse to the Preakness, watched him win the second jewel of the Triple Crown. This horse has been remarkably consistent. He hasn't laced back-to-back good numbers together since the LeCompte and the Risen Star, but boy, he's coming out of that Pennsylvania Derby very well, and I know he was third in that event, but he ran as good as he ever has to be third that day.
If you go back to the last couple of seasons, the horses that have come out of Louisiana haven't always been the ones that have fared well in the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont. He was a bit of the exception to that rule. Of course, the trouble in the Kentucky Derby, the winning effort in the Preakness. And then I think he's fallen off form just a touch, but I was somewhat encouraged by his Pennsylvania Derby in that I think he might be kind of rounding back into form. I loved this work, though, and very notably, and Gabby Gaudet showed us this kind of on the first Breakfast with the Breeders' Cup show, they did add a very small French Cup blinker to him. He is going to race in those blinkers, and I think you can see he's a different horse the way he's been training with these on. I love watching horses that you kind of look like they attack the ground. They're just so focused and have their mind on business out there. He's all racehorse right now with the addition of those blinkers. He's 20-1 on the morning line. I think you're going to get a very big price on him, but he is going to outrun his odds. I'm confident that the blinkers will propel him forward a few lengths.
Right now, we're going to check in with Caleb Keller, who's standing by with another star 3-year-old.
Better believe it. Potentially one of the best horses in training right now, Omaha Beach, classy as could be, walking out here at the racetrack. Let's not forget that Omaha Beach's sister, Take Charge Brandy, of course, won a Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies here. Omaha Beach won't be anywhere close to that 60-1, but second dam, Take Charge late. This horse bred in the purple, and it's kind of been the year of Warfront. But we're here with Mark Toothaker, stallion manager at Spendthrift Farm, and Mark, you got 5 really nice ones coming to the farm coming up soon, but I'm sure this is one of the most promising.
Well, Omaha has just been amazing. We've never had a horse come off the track with this much interest from our breeders. We've had over 500 requests to this point for seasons to the horse. So, yeah, it's just, to get your hands on a horse like this, and Mr. Hughes allowing us to be able to go out and acquire the breeding rights on him, it's been a thrill for us, and we look forward to Saturday and see what happens.
After the race, I could tell from Mike Smith that he wouldn't have even mind going to the Classic, and then Mandela said the Sprint, and you guys landed on the Dirt Mile, and he said it was a conference call with Spendthrift, and I have to wonder, with these horses like Tapazar and Liam's Map that have done Golden Sense, that have done so well coming out of the Dirt Mile, did you guys tell him, look, if you can give us a Dirt Mile champion, we can make this horse a top stud?
Well, the Dirt Mile is certainly, breeders look for horses that are milers. They seem to make the top stallions, and so we very much were hopeful that Richard, would go that direction. He's a Hall of Fame trainer. He's the guy that, has to ultimately make that decision. But as far as Spendthrift, we were sure hoping that the mile would be where he would land.
I don't want to talk too far past this big race coming up, but of course you got races like the Malibu and the Pegasus, and even next year. Is it set in stone that he'll be a stallion next year? Is there a chance that he could race throughout the 4-year campaign?
You know, that's something that Mr. Porter and Wayne would have to talk about to that point. I know right now the Malibu would be the next start if he comes out of this race good, and then point on toward the Pegasus and see. But we certainly have had so much interest in him. It just kind of gets down to a point of economics, you know, on what he can stand for and the amount of money that would be generated as far as, you know, on stud fees. It's hard to be able to go out on the racetrack and earn that kind of money. So we'll see. That'll ultimately be the boss's call and Rick Porter's. But all we have at Spendthrift is just the breeding rights. We don't own any racing rights in the horse. So we'll see what the ultimate decision is there. But we certainly are having breeders submit mares at this point, and just unbelievable. Grade 1 producers, Grade 1 winners. He's going to, you know, if he does come this year, which, you know, we'll see what they decide, it's going to be an unbelievable book of mares.
You guys had a lot of good luck out here. We think about Into Mischief and Golden Sense and winning the back-to-back Breeders' Cup Dirt Miles. But let's talk about some of the other contenders. I know you've got some top horses coming to the farm. Who else are you excited about for this weekend?
Well, Vino Rosso, you know, his horse is going to be in the Classic. We're excited to be able to bring him in. You know, Vinny Viola and Mike Rapoli, this is the first venture that we've done with them. They actually stayed in for a piece of the horse, so we're very excited about Vino and his chances on Saturday, and then getting him out to the farm. And Matoli will be in the sprint. Very excited about him as well. He's just been an absolute warrior since the first time we laid eyes on him at Oaklawn as a 3-year-old. We've been chasing him. We're so glad to be able to add him. Bill and Corinne Hallibrod have just been awesome. And, you know, a horse like Cold Front, you know, that's training great, looks great, looked great on the track this morning. And, you know, he's a horse that's a live shot chance, you know, to get a big piece of the mile as well.
How about that Mark Toothaker? We showed you walking out with Omaha Beach. And how about those stallions coming to the farm there soon in Kentucky?
Yeah, in Omaha Beach, he's sticking with the color theme here at Breeders' Cup because he is bred in the purple. Here's a look at his progression of races, and he's gotten faster with each and every start, no matter how you measure it, by Beyer speed figures or Thorograph numbers.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit confusing sometimes because when we're looking at, you know, the speed figures, you kind of want to flip it, right? You want to flip it upside down because you're looking at the past performances that direction. But the lower the number, the better as far as Thorograph goes. The higher the number, the better as far as the Beyer speed figures go. What I really like about his pattern is that he ran an equally fast race in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship as his fastest sprint race in the past. And so I feel like where some people might wonder if he's going to bounce, I actually think it was the perfect springboard for him. He's come back as good as he ever was and is now in the position to improve.
So you know how People Magazine does the Sexiest Man Alive? Well, if the Blood Horse Magazine ever wanted to do Sexiest Equine Alive, I think Matoli wins it for 2019. We got a good look at him on the racetrack the other day. Here's another look at that work as he prepares for the sprint. I mean, he is just an Adonis of horses, isn't he?
He absolutely is. And looking at this work, you're going to see that he's just so strong. We can update our time there. Technically, it was a 3 furlong blowout, but he went the half in 47-2. And he's just going to be in the bridle the entire time and really tugging at the rider. I mean, look at the hold and the cross that this exercise rider has on this horse. He's pressing his hands down against the withers just to try and maintain a little bit of leverage for himself to go ahead and hold this horse. I mean, look at the reach from Matoli right now. He wants to do so much more than they are allowing, and that is a very good thing, because when you're talking about a sprinter, and whether you're talking about a sprinter on the main track or on the turf, you're walking a really fine line. You want them to be fit, which all of these horses are because they've raced their way to this point, but you also want to hold on to that freshness. You want them to be able to go out there and just explode. You want them to be feeling like they're bursting out of their skin, and that's what you're seeing from Matoli right now.
Yeah, this exercise rider, he has first dibs on the ice tub when they get back to the barn because he's got to be absolutely sore in those forearms and that chest. Let's check in with Michelle Yu, who's standing by with Matoli's trainer.
I'm joined by Steve Asmussen. Just got into town, and you're enjoying the weather.
It's a little cool this morning and stuff, but the horses are enjoying it, and awfully lively morning.
What's the feedback been from Scott Blasey and the team here on site as you've been kind of watching from afar?
Right. Obviously, the horses have been here over a month and stuff. Made a few trips out early. We're obviously excited about the position we're in and feel very good about how the horses are doing.
And, what's the atmosphere like over here for you right now? You've brought in big horses before, but I feel like the buzz around Midnight Bisou has just been crazy. I mean, there's so many people following her around. How's it differ from when you've brought over other stars?
Well, I think it's very similar to Gunrunner Del Mar a couple years ago and stuff. She's put together a tremendous year, but we need to cap it off with a victory for her Saturday in the distaff. Just the filly's all class. We're very blessed and fortunate to be around her. Just the way she carries herself, and she's a tremendous racehorse.
A lot of buzz, too, about the work from Matoli, how quick it was, especially with the way the track had been playing. What were your thoughts immediately following the work?
Well, relief. Me and Scott had discussed it, and with him coming off a 2-month break, we wanted to be prepared for if he drew the fence in what is shaping up to be an extremely fast edition of the sprint. And we glad to have the work in him, love how he came out of it, and we're 2 days away with a smile on our face.
You do have a big smile. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Guys?
Thank you. I just love how nonchalantly he talks. It was like Gunrunner the other year when we came out here. I mean, he's done such a fantastic job building one of the most powerful stables this sport has ever seen.
Absolutely, and could very well be sitting on multiple Breeders' Cup wins this weekend.
As could Aidan O'Brien. We're eagerly anticipating the Ballydoyle contingent hitting the racetrack within the next 10, 15 minutes here. They're renovating right now. We'll be back with more on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup right after this. Welcome back. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. The view never grows tiresome, does it, here at Santa Anita as the mountains in the background. Here's a look at Pure Sensation. He's a turf monster winner last time out at Parks, as he'll be one of the top selections for Christophe Clement in this year's turf sprint.
And that was over a yielding turf course. He's been equally adept over the yielding ground and the firm ground. Loves the distance. He's 11 for 19.
Joaquin Jaime is standing by with his trainer.
Trainer Christophe Clement with 2 Breeders' Cup runners this year at Santa Anita. Christophe, will start with your 2-year-old and decorated invader for West Point. Won the summer stakes at Woodbine in his last start. How have you seen this horse progress over the last few months in his racing career?
No, he's a very nice horse. He's been getting better all the time. I mean, we always liked him even before he raced. And, the great news is the more we run him, the better he's becoming, the more mature he's becoming. So it's pretty exciting.
And then what about the old man, Pure Sensation, 5th in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint a couple years ago at Del Mar. How did you get this horse better now at age 8 versus last year at age 7?
I'm not sure he's better. He might be better on Breeders' Cup Day, but he's been a pretty nice horse since he's a 2-year-old. He's been running at stakes level since he's a 2-year-old, so basically for the last 6 years. But he's very nice. He's been very sound. He always had question mark on his feet, and so we manage his feet maybe a bit better now than we used to. But he's very fast. The Breeders' Cup is 5'8", so it's exciting. And, he's one of them. He's not the favorite, but he's one of them.
You have 2 different types of horses for you. You have a 2-year-old and you have an 8-year-old. What are the training differences for you with a 2-year-old routing on the turf versus an old campaign or an 8-year-old sprinting on the grass?
I think with the 2-year-old, you still try to teach him, and you try to build up from the previous race. And with the older horse, you just try to keep him as happy, as sound as possible. And, he's a gelding. We just take it one race at a time, and it's fun. And that's the way it is.
Thank you, Christophe. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Cue the Imperial March as the Coolmore horses make their way onto the track unforced for Aidan O'Brien. I mean, it's just an embarrassment of riches. King Neptune, Arizona Tango at 12, Fleeting, Just Wonderful, Circus Maximus, Mount Everest, Anthony Van Dyke. Is that all? We'll be back. I like red wine, but I love Vino Rosso, who hits the track. Right now, he's just kind of loping down the lane here. A 4-year-old Curlin colt who's been pretty good recently. Won the Gold Cup here at Santa Anita. Came back with a 3rd place finish in the Whitney, and then, of course, the controversial DQ in the Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Shining like a copper penny out there is Vino Rosso, the son of Curlin, out of the Street Cry mare Mythical Bride, looking fantastic for Todd Pletcher. Rapoli Stables, St. Elias Stables, bred by John Gunther. There's a lot of things that I like about him, and I've kind of gone back and forth as far as the classic selection. I think I'm going to settle on Vino Rosso. He is accomplished at the distance. I really like the campaign this year because they brought him out for the Gold Cup. He has the race here, the winning performance at the 1.25 miles. You know that Todd Pletcher was thinking long term when he made that decision.
Yeah.
Might as well go out and see if he likes Santa Anita. We know that now. He's 1 for 1 over the course here. And if you look throughout his career, any race in which he was running either third time out or third time off a layoff, that's been one of his career best races. Go down to the bottom of your past performances. That effort in the Wood Memorial was one of his best. He was on the sidelines for a little bit after the Travers. The third effort back was the Gold Cup, the win. Here we are sitting in this position again, the Whitney, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, third race off the break. I think you could see a career best from the son of Curlin this weekend.
The son of Aidan O'Brien, Joseph O'Brien, with Iridessa on the track right now as we take a look. They're wearing saddle towel number 404, getting ready for the Filly Mare Turf.
And just a little bit of a jog right now. We'll see if they do anything a little bit more serious with her. And you've got to remember, too, that they've come all the way, over on the flight. They've spent some time in quarantine and now just had a little opportunity to go ahead and get out there and stretch their legs. And same as I said earlier for some of the other Euros, just getting used to going both ways around the race course, getting used to training around in a circle versus on a gallop or uphill or, kind of a bigger outdoor type yard. Everything is new, and she seems to be handling it just fine. Very laid back, kind of a cool customer out there right now.
I wouldn't have been surprised if they wanted to go to the mile with her either, because she's got 2 Group 1 victories at a mile, and she does have a Group 1 victory at a mile and a quarter, so it's not a question of the distance not being something she could handle, but she wouldn't have had to face Sister Charlie, and perhaps going in the mile she could have, made some noise against the boys.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I mean, it seems to me, or it feels like, so often we kind of look to the Euros in any of the turf races, right? But the force that is Chad Brown and his barn has really kind of turned the tide a little bit and just given the Americans a stronger hand in each and every one of those races. And I also think that if you look at the record, both, mostly Aidan, his colts and geldings have done better at the Breeders' Cup than the fillies have. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they've had busy years. They've had big campaigns. They don't pull any punches. They compete at the top class level all season. And by the time you get to the end of the year, sometimes it can be a lot to ask to fly all the way here to America to run off the plane against some of our best horses. To me, the colts and geldings are just a little more hardy, and they handle that. Whereas the fillies and mares have a harder time bouncing back off of a big effort with the flight and everything kind of combined. So I look to the Americans and to Chad Brown to be strong enough to kind of take them on as far as the filly races go. Decorated Invader, I'm glad we're getting a chance to look at him. You heard from Christophe Clement a little while ago. He is a juvenile turf contender, and as Christophe mentioned, he's coming along and he's improving in each and every race, and I couldn't agree more. By looking at the replays, and you look at his last race up at Woodbine, he did it so easily. He has such a big, beautiful stride, and he looks like he's just improving by leaps and bounds every time they put the saddle on.
Yeah, you know what? He's one of those horses. You watch the race at Woodbine, the Summer Stakes. He's one of those horses that kind of fools you, right? Because, as you say, he does it so easy that for some reason that's less impressive, right? Because it comes so, like, where everyone's jumping on Vitology for being in this horse's wake because of the ground he had to make up. But there was Decorated Invader just kind of out there running at his own pace and making everybody else look like they were a class beneath him.
Yeah, I mean, he was geared down. It was a very easy win. They're also adding Lasix for the first time in the Breeders' Cup, which, you can kind of draw your own conclusions there. I mean, he has a lot of ability to improve with that addition. He's also been working very well. I checked the Racing with Bruno workout reports are out because he was back at Belmont for his last couple of works. He gets 4 stars. There's very few horses that are going to come in with 4-star works. He's able to perform over a yielding course, and he's also got the strongest late pace figure from Stats True Odds.
This is a site that never grows old. You see it every year at the Breeders' Cup. The way they do things for Coolmore, Aidan O'Brien, he brings them all out together. It's imposing. And if you're another trainer, another owner, you have to be intimidated.
Yeah, I can remember, I mean, this is going back many, many years ago, but just the first time seeing this and seeing kind of the parade of horses. And then you watch, with the Breeders' Cup Saddle Towels, you see all the names, and it's just superstar after superstar, classic winner after classic winner, Royal Ascot winners. I mean,
hang on. Who's in this throng of media? Is that Kim Kardashian? Oh, no, wait, it's Aidan O'Brien. He is as large a star as this sport has ever seen right now. It was, 1996 that John Magnier tapped him on the shoulder. He was a champion hunter jumper trainer, and he said, hey, how would you like to don the Coolmore silks on the horses you bring to the track?
It's been an incredible run, and it's still going very much so. And now you look at, his sons and daughters and all the success that they are having in training as riders. I remember when, years ago, Aiden was coming over and the kids were still from ages 10 down to, 4 or 3, and they'd all come in their matching gear, and they were out there just sort of supporting Dad. And now to see them and Joseph, training and being successful at the top class level himself.
You're looking at these kids like, oh, how cute. Now we're looking at them like, oh, can I get an interview? Yeah. As it happens. But Aiden O'Brien has, and the success was somewhat immediate for him with Coolmore once he was, tapped as a young man. I mean, that was 25 years ago. And there's a look at Anthony Van Dyke. This is your English Derby, or your Epsom Derby winner. Fantastically talented, so accomplished. Is this the best horse he's bringing over?
I think it might be. And, just looking at him out there, he doesn't seem to be any worse for the wear thus far, and traveling over. And we've seen him, he's been well traveled, and we've seen him back here in the States before, and he's been successful. He's always been one of the top class horses for them. And really, it's a coup for the Breeders' Cup to attract the best of the best from Aiden O'Brien's yard, because when you have that many horses, he does have to pick and choose. And luckily for all of us as racing fans, we get a chance to see him choose, one of the top horses that he has in the barn to come and compete here.
So right behind him is Circus Maximus, one of the mile contenders as well. We're just going to keep going through start to start to start. But there is 454, the Saddle Towel. That is Circus Maximus.
Yeah, Circus Maximus, 3-year-old. So he'll be taking on older here. He's already done so successfully. The winner of the Prix du Moulin last out at Longchamp. That was on September the 8th. They're going to put blinkers on him for the race. He will have Lasix as well. You talk about a beautiful pedigree. I mean, does it get any better? Galileo out of a Danehill Dancer mare. He was the winner, as I mentioned, last time out at Longchamp. He had a little bit of trouble, I thought, in the Juddmonte International a couple starts back at York. Japan would win that race. So clearly, top class company. Second in the Sussex to Too Darn Hot for Qatar Racing. Prior to that, your winner at Royal Ascot of the St. James's Palace.
That was his coming out party right there. That was a
indeed.
fantastic performance. It's such an exciting race, and he got the best of them that day.
And here's a look at him out on track. 4 for 10 lifetime so far. And a powerhouse partnership behind, too. Mrs. Magnier and Flaxman Holdings teaming up. And I like that we've been able to take sort of the wide shot for you here. You can kind of really take in the scene and the grandeur of it all, of the entire Ballydoyle team out there for a jog. I've seen a lot of, you see it on social media and whatnot, the way that Aiden trains, overseas, and he'll often be in a car going alongside as the horses are warming up and giving his instructions to each and every rider. And I think what always strikes me is that he has this mind, this incredible memory for each and every horse, and he's rattling off these instructions to these riders, 20, 25 horses in a row. He's not looking at any notes.
Yeah.
He's not, asking anyone for any kind of prep. He knows every single one of them. Here we go. Something just exactly like this as they're going along, calling out to the riders for what he wants to see from these horses.
That's actually, unfortunately, it's Magical who couldn't make it out because she spiked a fever right before they were going to put her on the plane. Thankfully, they found that before they actually put her on the plane. But, we were so looking forward to getting her on the track here, either in the turf or in the Filly Mare turf to take on Sister Charlie. But she's as brilliant a horse. And, I wonder, and hopefully we get to ask him this, does it make it any easier that you have a throng of other Group 1 horses coming over to the Breeders' Cup, or when you miss a horse like Magical making the plane, does that still sting?
I think it does. I think it has to when you have a horse that's that good. And especially, Sister Charlie's going to be one of the shorter price favorites, I think, of the day.
Well, it certainly does.
Saturday. And so you watch that race with that in the back of your mind if you're from the camp, right?
Well, and I think we take for granted, right, the endless oasis of equine athletes that seem to come through the Coolmore yard for him and that he seems to acquire. But I think for me, I had a moment with Todd Pletcher in 2015 at the Breeders' Cup. He won the Dirt Mile with Liam's Map. He won the Distaff with Stop Charging Maria. And I went to his barn the next day. We wanted to get our pictures taken with, Liam's Map, and then go see American Pharaoh and Nyquist and all these Breeders' Cup winners. And after such a monstrous day, he was very quiet, and I was like, oh, Todd, you must feel great. He's like, and he looked at me and very matter-of-factly said, I'm losing six grade 1 winners from my barn today.
Oh.
You know, I mean, it's just like, and you forget, like, for someone like Todd Pletcher, who's been at the heights of this game for so long, you just think just one after another, next horse up, but it still hits them.
Well, you know, I think about that also for a lot of the connections of the fillies and mares that are competing here. You know, Midnight Bisou, especially. What a run it has been for several years. What a year it has been for her. But we're going to jump right into the sales next week.
Right.
Keelan and
Right.
Fazig, and a lot of these fillies and mares, this is the last time. This is their swan song. Elate, the same thing. And so for the barn, it's just another level of pressure, isn't
Right.
it? You want to go out on top. You want to go out with a bang because you know you're putting these horses on a van and on a plane within a day or two.
So we saw the Epsom Derby winner, Anthony Van Dyke, on the racetrack. Here's how they fared here. High Chaparral, of course, winning 2 Breeders' Cup turfs, one via dead heat in 2003. That was his second. Galileo finished 6th in the 2001 Classic, one of the most famous races in Breeders' Cup history. Quest for Fame was 3rd in the Breeders' Cup turf in 92. Dr. Devious was 4th in the turf, and then Quest for Fame finished 3rd in the turf as well. So they've performed well, but only one of them has won.
It's a difficult task, and we'll see if Anthony Van Dyke is up to it. He was a competitor in the juvenile turf last year at Churchill over the yielding going. It was really one of the only bad races, actually, of his career, you know, aside from the King George when everything kind of went wrong for him.
Is it unfair for me to say he's a little light on the wins, though? I mean, he's not like he's coming in off of a string of consecutive victories. He hasn't won since that Epsom Derby.
Right. No, and that was back in June the 1st. He, in the Irish Derby, was 2nd to Sovereign. Just a terrible day for him at Royal Ascot, and he, you know, took some money on that occasion. 3rd in the Irish Champion Stakes at Leopardstown in his subsequent start behind Magical and Magic Wand, and now he comes here to the States, and maybe they're, you know, just trying to sort of right the ship and get him back to the winner's circle.
Well, we want some insight from Matt Brocklebank on the Europeans coming over, and for that we go to Joaquin Jaime.
37 international runners at the Breeders' Cup this year. Matt Brocklebank joining me now from Sporting Life to help sort out some of those European runners. What is the general overview of the European contingent that has come this year to Santa Anita?
Well, I'm not going to stand here, Joaquin, and tell you that we're bringing the Avengers over to descend on Santa Anita, but I think a good barometer is to say that we've got 6 Royal Ascot winners. 3 of those are 2-year-olds as well. We've got a couple of 3-year-olds, and the old boy Law Glitters is back, the Queen Anne winner. So it's not, we're certainly lacking a superstar. The likes of Enable, Crystal Ocean, Magical, unfortunately, ruled out as well. So it's lacking a bit of a focal point, but we've got some very decent, very useful horses, obviously in the turf division anyway.
Let's start with the Breeders' Cup Turf Division. We do have a Derby winner here in Anthony Van Dyke. What do the Europeans feel his chances are in the Breeders' Cup Turf?
I think the vibes are very strong about Anthony Van Dyke. Very specifically, he's been trained towards this race. That's really crucial, I think. When you come over here at the end of the season, he's a Derby winner, as you say. He's had a couple of blips in between. He was beaten in the maddest renewal of the Irish Derby I've ever seen. He was surely the best horse in that race, finished 2nd, unfortunately. And then he went to Ascot. He ran in bad ground. He ran in cheap pieces. It was a no-show in the King George. He bounced back. Really good to see him bounce back in the Irish Champion Stakes. Finished just behind Magical in 3rd that day. The form, it ties in quite nicely there. Magic Wand, a horse that you know well, and obviously that Bricks and Mortar knows quite well. So Anthony Van Dyke, strictly on that form, has a wee bit to find with Bricks and Mortar, but he's been trained specifically for this race. He could have run in the Arc, he could have run at Ascot and Champions Day, but he comes here, and I think this race is going to be really run to suit. They're going to go hell for leather. Mount Everest, the stablemate, he's back to form last time out. I suspect he's one for next year to stay in longer distance races, so he's going to really stretch them out. They're going to try and expose Bricks and Mortar's stamina.
And what about some of the other Breeders' Cup races on the grass? Who do you guys think has the best chance to take home a Breeders' Cup trophy?
Well, some really nice young horses, as I say, in the 2-year-old division. We've got a couple, 3 Royal Ascot winners, ALE in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. He's a contender. I wouldn't say he's an absolute lock, but far from it. I think Kamari for the home team is going to be difficult to beat. Her form ties in very nicely. Raffle Prize, it's a good body of work, that form. Raffle Prize's form ties in with Daya. Now, I like Daya a lot. I liked her before the draw. I liked her more now. She's going to come out of stall 5 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. William Buick, I think that's going to be essential. The thing with her is that she's in a rematch against Albina from the Moigler. Now, Albina had excuses that day, said to be heavily in season afterwards, but she's come out and won since in the Marcel Boussac. Dea for Roger Varian. Now, she's come out and won the Rockfell, and I think that she's naturally pacey. She's got speed. Albina, I've just spoke to Shane Foley. He's her big race jockey. She's going to be one for 10 furlongs next season. She just won in soft ground Longchamp. This is going to be chalk and cheese. She's going to need a lot of luck as well from stall 9. So Dea is definitely one to have on the list. And Arizona as well. I mean, Arizona comes here. The BHA official handicappers back in England say that Arizona ran to a mark of 117. Now, it sounds a bit dull, but let's put that into context. The previous winners, Aidan O'Brien has won this race, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf 4 times in the past. Rote, George Vancouver, Mendelssohn, Hit It a Bomb. Significance there as well is that Hit It a Bomb came out of stall 13. Arizona's got 12 to overcome, but Hit It a Bomb ran to the same mark as what Arizona's just run to in the Dewhurst. He's just followed home superstar European 2-year-old Pina Tubo in the Dewhurst. Now, all that is to say that he doesn't have to improve to win this race. I think he's already achieved enough to win. Very different setup round here, round a bend. Fast ground is going to be in his favour, though. He switches from softer surface to fast ground. The last time he ran on good to firm, he won doing handstands.
All right, flip side of the coin. Any Europeans that might be a bit vulnerable in their Breeders' Cup races?
Well, Fleeting seems to have found herself towards the head of the betting in the filly and mare turf. Now, obviously, they've all got Sister Charlie to beat here. Now, she's a real standout, isn't she, for the home team? But one I like at a price here, I think it's one to include, definitely perhaps underneath Sister Charlie, is a horse called Billesden Brook. A really nice story, a good subplot here with Billesden Brook. Richard Hannon brings just one filly over. She's a real special filly in this whole operation, the Richard Hannon team. And they hold her really close to their heart. She won the 1,000 guineas at Newmarket last season, and she was back in the groove last time out at Newmarket in the Sun Chariot Stakes. Another Group 1. Sean Levy, who rides her, his only Breeders' Cup experience is coming over with Aidan O'Brien back in the day when he was riding out for Aidan O'Brien, the Ballydoyle team. So it's a really big day for him, but she is a super filly, Billesden Brook. She's got a real following back home, and I think she could cause an upset, at least finish second maybe to Sister Charlie.
Matt, thank you so much. Fantastic insight. Have a great Breeders' Cup here at Santa Anita.
Cheers, Joaquin. Same to you.
Look at that. Oh, my goodness. The Coolmore horses. I mean, this is as impressive a sight as you will see in horse racing. Look, they do it with style, and they do it as well as anybody ever has in this game, as all of the horses from the Aidan O'Brien barn on the track together, stretching their legs in unison. I mean, this is like a marching band.
And where did everybody else go? They scared them all away. They
Right.
seem to be the only horses.
Would you want to be out there with them?
No. I don't know if I'd want to be out there right now or come race day. It is certainly a very imposing sight, and I think that's another look at Anthony Van Dyke. I believe
Do they do that for that reason? Is there an intimidation factor like other sports?
That's Circus Maximus. Stand corrected as he continues to go on. I'm sort of thinking to myself a little bit, and we looked at that video of Aidan as how he's able to just kind of drive alongside with the truck when he's back at home training. This must feel a little bizarre for him in that he can't be so close to them all the way around the racetrack. And as we saw from the people kind of walking to try and get all the interviews, all the journalists, I'm sure he's not standing alone right now either. He probably has 12 people trying to ask him a question. So, all the hard work is done. You did all that at home anyways. They come here. You just want to stretch everybody's legs, make sure that they've stayed hydrated, handled the flight well, and are, feeling fresh and feeling 100% as we get closer to race day. But it must just be a little bit jostling for Aidan O'Brien, just not being able to be as close and to get that view, 10 feet from them as they're training.
They're magnificent for their own respects, but this is the complete opposite of being at Ballydoyle and training, right? I mean, there's no comparison between the two. Other than that, they're must-sees on the list of any racing aficionado, and before I die, I hope I have a chance to see it. But we see what Ballydoyle produces, and we have seen that here at Santa Anita and in the Breeders' Cup for years, and Aidan O'Brien as successful as any in the history of the Cup.
What's interesting, too, is just to sort of look at the mentality. They're all very well-mannered. out there. You know, you would think that in a throng that large, you might have at least one
bad
bad
actor,
actor,
yeah.
and you don't. I mean, everybody, total pro, from the jog that we saw first by to the gallop by again, and now hopefully they'll walk through the paddock behind us here if we get lucky, because where they are right now, you know, coming around that first turn, as they approach the grandstand and sort of square up, they can make a left, go through the tunnel, which will bring them here to the paddock. Maybe take a little spin around the paddock, do a little bit of a light schooling there, and take kind of the long way back home, giving them plenty of time to walk and to kind of tour the grounds here, which is what you would see overseas also. I mean, you know, here in the States, our training stops at 10.
Yeah.
The track man has to get the track ready for racing in the afternoon, whereas they have a lot more time to go on a nice long walk, to cool out, you know, with the rider on their back. Our freelance exercise riders here might get on 14, 15 horses a morning, whereas if you're a stable lad there for Ballydoyle, you might only have 3 or 4 lots for the day, because you're going to be on that horse's back for 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour.
Training undoubtedly is part science, but mostly art, as there are a million different ways to train a racehorse. But the way that Aidan O'Brien does it, and the Coolmore horses, they just have an MO that is unlike any other in the sport, and the results have shown that it's perhaps better than any other in the sport. We'll hopefully catch them in the paddock when we return after this.
Joe Parley's alive. We're back. All right, what are we doing? All right, ready, set, go. Hey, I'm Kenny Mayne, and I'll be in the BC, which I just learned means Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. I'll be playing for 2 charities. One is I Am Horse Racing that you're watching on now, and the other is Run Freely, an organization that we started up in Seattle, and we're getting veterans walking and running pain-free. I think I was 8. Went with my mom first, but principally went with my Uncle Gordy. He taught me how to read a form, and my dad occasionally. I live south of Seattle, so we had an old track called Long Acres. And we now have Emerald Downs up there, obviously. But Long Acres was kind of like our Santa Anita. You know, had the poplar trees and Mount Rainier in the distance, and some really good horses raced there. It was great. I think I went from age 8 or 9 until I'm older now. I love going early and seeing the whole place build up and the crowd fill in. And if I won a race, I'd run down and congratulate my jockey. I'd be like 10, you know, like reaching out at the rail. But just the feeling. It was like some people like to go with their uncle to the, you know, whatever, the Red Sox game. I liked going with my uncle to the racetrack. It just felt at home. It was a great thrill that I got to cover horse racing for a number of years at ESPN, kind of appreciating what you're seeing, the athleticism of the horses and the jockeys, the build up to each race. I always say you can get by in life with racetrack math, and it really, nothing against those in NASA or whoever that are doing higher level math, But I mean, most of us aren't really going to use calculus in our daily life, but we are going to use simple math, doing the quick times this, divided by that, little addition, subtraction. I mean, that gets you through a day at a racetrack, and mostly gets you through with your checkbook register as well. I, too, am horse racing.
And Kenny will be playing in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, and you can also play along with him. We're going to take a look at the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. More than $1 million in prizes expected. You can play on track. Plus, for the first time ever, you can play at tvg.com. That is huge for me because I'm not going to be able to make it up to that room where you got to put your bets in. BreedersCup.com/BCBC for more info. I'm lying. I'm not going to play in the BCBC. I would have to buy in, and I don't have that kind of money.
And thank you to Kenny from all of us at I Am Horse Racing for playing for us. We are certainly rooting for him, and hopefully he can take it down.
Because you are I Am Horse Racing, so that's significant for your efforts in spreading the good word. The good word has been spread about Yoshida. I've heard a lot of people high on his chances. This is a look earlier in the week at his final tune-up for the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah, and they were some of the others to come pretty early, the Mott contingent, all three of them. We saw Elate's work a little bit earlier. This will be 4 furlongs and 50 flat for Yoshida, and that's kind of more the style of Bill Mott. He doesn't really ask for a whole lot in terms of a fast time for the work, but you're going to see a really nice work here from Yoshida. He's a little bit farther off the rail, so kind of keep that in mind in terms of the time as well. It's a good thing. He's covering more ground. He's kind of in the two-path right here, and the rider just going ahead and letting him stretch his legs. They've had the chance to jog, to gallop, to be here, to settle in, and to also train before it got too busy, before kind of the hustle and bustle of these last few days, and this horse is sitting on a big one. You can see right there with his energy. He's really willing, wants to do more. The rider has not moved his hands, hasn't moved a muscle, and is just letting him kind of be a happy horse out there. That's exactly what you have with Yoshida.
So he's a Grade 1 winner on turf and dirt. Can you tell by his action looking at him on the main track that he would also be good on turf, or is he just so talented it doesn't matter what surface he runs on?
I think he's so talented that it doesn't matter. I don't think that you look at him and think he typically has a real turfy action at all. You can see why they would, have tried both surfaces with him. And I think that that's something this dual Grade 1 winner, it's very rare. Not many horses have done it. We saw Catholic Boy just went to the breeding shed with that on his resume as well. But it's also becoming just so much more fashionable right now because there's so much money on the line for a lot of the turf racing. We're putting more money into those programs here in the U.S. Obviously, it's where, the focal point is in Europe, and you're seeing it all over the world and always have. And you're now having horses like Yoshida, like Catholic Boy, that are more attractive to commercial breeders because they have that versatility.
Mike Smith, he loses Mackenzie. He picks up Yoshida, and he's had tremendous success with Bill Mott. They've won 3 times together, including Drosselmeyer in 2011, which was on the heels of the Lawson Zenyatta for Mike Smith. Royal Delta, of course, the most recent. Now, this is Dennis's moment. With Maxfield out of the juvenile, and all of us, I'm sure, feeling for Brendan Walsh, and a lot of us loved him. Dennis's moment, though, even with Maxfield, 8 rings in there, he was put as the morning line favorite. And this work, we got to revisit it with Gabby showing the work to Tammy Fox and then her describing what was going on. But this was certainly the star of show 1 on the 25th of October.
Yeah, he absolutely was. And, we've said this kind of before because Tammy is so small and so light. She makes horses look good out there.
Yeah.
But he does it himself, too. And what I really like about Dennis's moment is that he just makes you so excited for next year because he is your 2-turn horse.
Yes.
He's that horse that has that way of going that makes you think about the 1.25 miles, that 'tis now really coming out in the way that he looks and the way that he moves, and he got over this track effortlessly. And I like the little acceleration right there. You can see Tammy kind of let out a little notch at the end. He had something left to finish with. I'm a little worried about the rail for him because I think it does kind of commit him pace-wise in here. Looking at his last couple of races, and look, the 19 1/4 length race, the day he broke his maiden at Ellis, that was one of those that everybody's going to point to. But I actually preferred the Iroquois because he did show that he can rate, and he showed that professionalism. He had the 2-turn, race under his belt. There's a lot of things that were positive about that day, but I think from the rail, he's not really going to have that chance, and I'm not sure that that is the best way for him to run against the toughest horses he's going to face. And I'm not sure it's the best thing that you want to do for him just in general, because you don't want to go out there and send him
right
and run him off his feet early on and take away his finish.
Well, he is certainly the most talented horse, it appears, in this year's Juvenile. We'll have to work it out from the rail. Here's a look at Blue Prize, the exact opposite of a rail draw. She draws post 11 on the outside in the distaff. She's coming off back-to-back wins, one at Saratoga, and then she won the Grade 1 Spinster last time out. Nacho Carreras, one of the moments. It's either Nacho or Safi Joseph for a moment of the year with the reactions to the Grade 1 victories. Blue Prize, though, she is a remarkably consistent filly, though. I mean, she won back-to-back runnings of the Spinster. She has been running virtually the same number every time she hits the track.
What I love about this work is that she practices the way she plays. And what I mean is that they ask her to really finish and to kind of turn on the afterburners in the mornings, and she does that in her races. Now, you'll also notice her tail carriage. That's something that she always does. When I was first looking at some of her races, it kind of turned me off of her. She does it in the mornings, she does it in the afternoon. But watch this rider just kind of set her down at the end and let her really go after it. She has some gears, this mare. And I think, and maybe this is a more recent work than what I had seen as far as that acceleration goes, because you didn't see a whole lot of it right there. For me, with Midnight Bisou, as I said earlier on the program, if you hook her, you're not going to beat her because she will get by you. Blue Prize has the ability to finish like a turf horse on the main track. And so I don't know if she can do it, but I think the only way to beat Midnight Bisou is to take her by surprise, to blow right on by her. And for all the horses in this field, Blue Prize has that turn of foot more so than anybody else.
Just go by her when she can't see
you. You got to take her by surprise. You run the turn, blow right on by. If she's good enough, we'll find out. But I think she's the only one that has the weapon to be successful against her.
Well, Catalina Cruiser tried the mile last year. This year he's going in the sprint for John Sadler and Ronis Racing. Won the San Diego and the Pat O'Brien at Del Mar this summer, part of a fantastic campaign for the Ronis Racing Silks and John Sadler. This was back on the 25th, a 48 flat work.
He's so imposing, isn't he, Catalina Cruiser? You know, just big son of Union Rags out of a mine shaft mare. There's a lot of size on both ends of that pedigree, and he has all of it. And he's just sort of fierce in the way he runs, too. Ears pinned back. He's all business, and he goes out there and does his job like an absolute professional. He has kind of an axe to grind, I think, with the Breeders' Cup, because you think back to last year, it was the only blemish on his record. He was a 90-cent favorite on the dollar in the dirt mile back at Churchill, and it was the worst performance of his entire career. But I think he's coming back to himself. He stuck his nose out, really battled on in the Pat O'Brien. I love everything about the way he is training, and I think he's going to be a little bit underestimated, and I don't know why that is, because I think you're getting so much attention for Matoli, for Chancelot, for Imperial Hint, for the speed, but this horse has so much class and so many gears and covers so much ground. It's interesting how the you know, with the way that the dirt mile works, and I know he's in the sprint, but I think that one turn mile is actually what's best for him. If we were at Churchill, if we were at Belmont, you know, that configuration to me seems like his best. I understand why they end up with him here in this race, but I think he's kind of going to be overlooked a little bit somehow in the sprint.
Bottle Meet Lightning. Donna Veloce, one start, and that's all it takes for her to be installed as the morning line favorite in the Juvenile Fillies. So many questions to be answered, but in a brief amount of time, she certainly captured the imagination of clockers and handicappers alike.
She's so classy, this filly. Daughter of Uncle Mo, out of a Montjou mare, so you have all the ability to answer that two-turn question. And she puts a lot into her works in the mornings. Donna Veloce means fast woman. That is what she is. You see that from her here. She was a 9 1/4 length winner when she broke her maiden back on the 28th of September. She earned a 6 as far as the Thorograph figures go for that performance, a 91 buyer. And she's continuing on in the morning. I think you're seeing that she is progressing. She is moving forward. But that rail draw is just one more thing that's up against her, unfortunately, this year. You know, she's inexperienced with just one race. Fortunately for her, the race is in her own backyard. She doesn't have to deal with the ship. But I think as soon as they pulled, you know, that pill for the post one, that makes a really tough to ask that much of this filly. And I think that if you look at the entire race at the juvenile fillies, the most raw talent is with the least experienced horses in her and British Idiom. Now, British Idiom does have the Alcibiades and the two-turn race, so that's a big leg up on this filly. But I think if we're kind of looking at who has the most ability in this field, it's those two with very little experience on track.
She's one of 14 mounts for French rider Flavien Prat, who's called California's home for about a half a decade now, and certainly one of the best riders in the game. His agent, Derek Lawson, has been a key part of his success.
First of all, you ride for your clients that you've been riding for all year long, if they have horses that are Breeders' Cup eligible and that you believe that can win a Breeders' Cup race. Because there's $34 million that's being distributed over 2 days, and Flavien and I, we want a piece of that action. So anyway, Breeders' Cup is upon us. That's him right there. Who are we working right now? Oh, okay. You know, the fun part of this game for myself, obviously winning is what we're here to do, but just to be able to watch the development of Flavien as a rider, because sometimes he does things on the back of a horse, and I think to myself, how the hell did he win that race, you know? Hello. Yeah, Ron, Derek Lawson, Flavien Prat's agent. How are you? Fine. Whitmore, are you set with the rider? Because we're opening the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I'm just making a call to see if you might be able to use us in that race. Right now, what I'm trying to do is the races that we don't have a mount, I'm speaking with other trainers and let them know that we are open in those races. All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. The distaff, I've reached out to Tom Amos for Serengeti Empress. He'll get back to me, but he told me don't make a move to hang tight there. So that would be good. I mean, Serengeti Empress would be awesome for us to, because we did lose Secret Spice. Now, getting taken off of Breeders' Cup horses, yeah, it's not fun. But then the idea for me is to say, okay, fine, you don't want us. Now I'm going to try and find a horse to beat you. I've got Simon at 7:45, and then we can come over and get you right at 8:30. Okay? All right, super. All we discussed basically is horses that we could possibly ride, horses where we might be in trouble, where we have two horses in one race, and then we try and make the decision on which one we're going to ride. No, he's not in here. Sorry. He's hiding from us. I know he's doing this on purpose. Did your jockey walk by? Morning, Derek. Morning, Daryl. How are you?
Everything's good.
All right. A little update. 3 open, but total of 11 mounts so far. Whitmore, the pre-entries came out. His preference is the sprint, so we're going to wait and see. I'll probably give him another day. Hit the road for Dan Blacker in the juvenile grass race. Flavien will be riding him in the Breeders' Cup as well. Come on, Flavien. Once I'm done here in the morning with Flavien, once he leaves, I'll head on home, clean up, and then come on back to the races, and hopefully watch Flavien win 2, 3, or 5 races a day, however he's riding. I wait with him afterwards. We discuss what happened during the day. I let him know who his workers are in the morning, and then we do it again. You know, trust me, this is not rocket science. Even Todd Schrupp could do this job.
And Derek Lawson makes it easy for Todd Schrupp and you and I because he is always eager to give us information. He stopped me on my way to the car at the parking lot a couple of weeks ago from Santa Anita, and he goes, "Hey, just so you know, I think we got 14 for the Breeders' Cup."
And yeah, just an update there from the package. He did pick up the mount on Whitmore. He did pick up the mount on Serengeti Empress. So he will be very busy come this weekend. And Derek's so dedicated. He's here every morning, every afternoon, all the way through the race day.
He's got one hell of a rider, that's for certain. Clocker's Corner. Update, not slowing down. We'll be back with more on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. One of the stars of Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup has been Joaquin Jaime as he works on his second career as a groom. We have been grooming Joaquin for years now. There he is putting on the wraps with Dan, learning how to put a bridle and a saddle on. This was a tough one. Peter Urton had him washing a horse. What's Joaquin going to learn today in our latest edition of Grooming Joaquin?
You're showing me how to put on a tongue tie.
Yep, that's why you got to put on a tongue. It's made out of Indian material, about 2 feet long enough so we can get it around the tongue and tie it underneath his jaw. See, so we try to grab the tongue, pull it out there a little bit. It'll come out there pretty good. So we have it like that. Just kind of put it over this end. The longer end that in, because you're going to wrap it around, right? You want to end up with the same amount after you've turned it around.
Okay.
Go like this, boom, and then grab it without getting bit. Turn it around on the other side. So now it's wrapped around his tongue, and I've got the ends both over here, so you put his tongue back in. And now it's just sitting on top, underneath the bridle. So then you just kind of tie it with like an easy bow right there, and like you're tying a shoe.
Okay.
Boom. You want to try it?
You pull out his tongue for me.
Okay, I'll do that for you. So this, you remember that's the hand you're grabbing with, and this is the hand that you're going to wrap it around. Don't pull on it too hard. Yeah, you have to kind of give with it because it's only so long. So keep your hand there.
Okay.
Now put the tongue tie over the top of it. Again.
Same amount of.
No, a little more on this side because you're going to wrap it around. Remember?
Okay.
That's a little too far. Right there.
Okay.
Now drop it down. Now pull this other end over the top. Okay. Whoa, whoa. It's tricky.
Yeah, this is not easy.
Let it drop over there like that.
Okay.
Wrap it like that, and then come over here, and I'm going to let you tie it. Okay. Okay, just tie it like you're tying a shoe. There you go, chickie. We'll give you a treat after this. There you go. Tongue. Hey, you did it.
Really easy.
Wait, so did Peter Urton give Joaquin a treat? I thought he said he was going to give him a treat afterwards. Joaquin, thank you for being a sport. And look, it doesn't end here. There's more behind-the-scenes footage of grooming Joaquin at youtube.com/TVG network. I mean, it's all fun and games until Joaquin loses a finger, right?
I have done a lot back at the barn. I have to admit, I have not put a tongue tie on.
I think
that was a tall task for him to take on.
I think we really delved deep there with grooming Joaquin. Joaquin has been a great sport about it, and he really enjoys it. I think he's having more fun with that segment than anything else we've been doing all week.
Yeah, he has. He was back there all last week, kind of getting ready for this segment and preparing for it. So thanks, Joaquin, for the extra work, and it's been one of the more entertaining parts of the show for sure.
Ask and ye shall receive. I know you wanted to take a look at Castle Lady. So here we have it for you. This is from earlier in the week. I think this is the first day they gave out the saddle towels. First of all, why did you want to see this work, and what exactly are we looking for here?
Well, what I liked because I kind of got my eye on her when I was here one morning just walking around doing some other work, and she looked really fresh and like a filly that's come over here and just still has a lot of energy and kind of training with a lot of gusto. And you're going to see here in a second, the rider's going to open his hands up. Watch her turn it on. I mean, look at her go. And this is over the main track for Castle Lady. I mean, if this is what she can do on the dirt, what can she do on the turf course? I think she is coming in just really feeling herself right now. And if she can show that kind of acceleration, which I'm confident that she can on the turf, and that's a big rider on her back too. She's carrying a good amount of weight right there. This is a filly that I think you have to take a closer look at for the filly and mare turf.
I mean, only 5 starts under her belt. This 3-year-old is up against it in that, but she looks for a 15-to-1 shot. I mean, that's what the beauty of the Breeders' Cup is. You can get a horse like that. You can also get a horse like Fannie Logan. This filly, I want to hear what you think about the work, because she's getting the opportunity to feel this turf course under her hooves, and she has been undefeated, 4 for 4 since they added blinkers prior to that British Stallion Studs Lyric Stakes at York in July, and since then she has only gotten faster.
Yeah, she's just getting better and better right now, isn't she? You mentioned that 4-race win streak, and she really turned it on there at Salisbury with the 7-length win. Dettori was aboard her in the most recent race. That was the Darley Pride. At Newmarket, he is going to ride her here on Saturday. He's had so much success at the Breeders' Cup. And at the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita, don't forget, he spent a lot of time here as a very young man and was working for Wayne Lucas for a little while and kind of adopted a lot of the American riding style from that sort of tutelage that he was able to learn kind of early on in his career. I was talking to Simon Bray about this filly a little bit yesterday, and you think about, John Gosden, Godolphin. I just don't think they would put her on a plane if they weren't extremely confident in her and if they didn't really think that they could come over and win this race. I mean, you probably will get that 15-1. And again, here's another big price in this race that looks like she's handled the ship very well. She has all the class in the world. Her thoroughgraph numbers are right there in line with the best in the group. And with the addition of Lasix, maybe she does get a little better, which is, who knows if she needed to improve. But I think you might see that from her on Saturday.
Well, she's everything a handicapper wants to see, a horse where they make a change, and not only does she respond, but she becomes even better than you thought she had in her prior to that. So it's just going up for her. So there's a look at Fannie Logan. Right now we're going to switch gears back to some more American interest as Joaquin is standing by with Brett Calhoun.
Just about a year ago, trainer Brett Calhoun was getting set for Mr. Money in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he was the buzz horse at Churchill Downs. Ran a very nice fourth that day as a long shot. And Brett, here we are a year later, and you're the favorite, or one of the favorites, at least in the dirt mile. So tell us about the year and how he's progressed from a 2-year-old.
Well, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Obviously, after the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, we had the Derby on our mind, and we had a couple of setbacks over the winter going into some of the preps, just minor stuff here and there, kind of odd stuff. And so he did debut back in a good race on Derby Day. Just wasn't the Derby, it was the Pat Day Mile. So he kind of got back on track there. It's been a great run, been very consistent through all that, and then brings us back to the Breeders' Cup as a 3-year-old.
You guys really toured the heartland and made him pay there, the Indiana Derby and the West Virginia Derby. What was it like to have so many options? Because you guys considered the Travers, you guys considered the Breeders' Cup Classic, but he just won and barely just got beat last time in the Pennsylvania Derby.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities for a good 3-year-olds and a lot of money to run at. And thanks to Chester Thomas's wife, Jennifer, for being very patient and allowing us to campaign this horse in a way that kept him fresh for a long campaign. And we picked up a lot of money along the way. That was the plan. We were a little unlucky to win the Pennsylvania Derby. It was still a good race, and we thought he deserved to come back to the Breeders' Cup. But we've had a lot of fun along the way. He's been very consistent. We've kept him fresh and healthy, and hopefully he'll show up well Saturday.
Seems like he wants a very specific trip. He wants to be close, but he wants to maybe have a target and be stalking. Do you feel like he gets that on Saturday?
Yeah, I think he does. I think we drew well. And I think he'll get a good trip. I think you don't have to worry about rating quite as much in this mile. I think there'll be plenty of speed and they'll be running. And I think he'll find him in a spot with a target, which I think he's comfortable in that spot. And he's got a post position that would allow him to should get in the best part of the racetrack. And hopefully we have a lucky trip from there.
How about the trip in? You guys just got here Tuesday. I mean, there's been some barns that have been here for a month. So what went into flying in a little bit closer to the race?
He's run on quite a few different tracks this year and done it pretty successfully. And I just didn't feel like he needed to be here any earlier. Kept him in his own stall and at home and where he's comfortable, and just come here a few days out.
And lastly here, speaking of the Airbnb, the stall here, you're at the Baffert barn. So Mr. Bob let you in for the weekend.
Yeah, I think he's had a few good runners come out of this barn. So, we were lucky to stay with them, and they take good care of us.
Brett Calhoun here, a winner of the Breeders' Cup with Chamberlain Bridge back in 2010, and this is the second straight Breeders' Cup event for Mr. Money.
Caleb, thank you very much. Around 2010 was when I discovered my favorite cure for a hangover, vitamin water and Pirate's Booty, both of which have a lot to do with the man standing by with Michelle Yu right now, Mike Rapoli.
Finally able to catch up with Mike Rapoli, the man with two good sides. How are you enjoying Breeders' Cup?
Oh, it's been a lot of fun coming out here, and it's about 45 degrees in the morning, but it's cools out during the day, so it's been a lot of fun,
And we've been watching Vino Rosso on track. I got to say, he looks very impressive physically. Have you been pleased with the way you've been seeing him come into the race?
I would use the word giddy. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, me and Todd have been doing business now for 11 years. He's a great friend, and very rarely do I see him this excited about a horse, so it kind of gets me really, really nervous. Like, I actually talk to him less when the horse is doing well than when it's not. And the way he shipped in, the way he's galloping over this track, everybody says he looks great. It scares me.
You've had some really good luck in Breeders' Cup. What's it been like to be here and to really get to celebrate some of these amazing horses that you brought up in my favorite color, Silks?
Yeah, thanks a lot. But, you know, my first Breeders' Cup race was Uncle Mo. And you won that, and I probably should have retired that day. I mean, but it's just to come back. Now, I think, you know, being a little bit older, 10 years in the game at a high level, you know, it's more about, you know, the Thursday, the Friday. The races are great, and if you win, you celebrate like New Year's Eve. But even when you lose, it's we'll come around here with like 40 friends and family members, so it can be a lot of fun.
I know where I'm going to head out then in your group, right?
Oh, we have a room for 80, and there's only 40, so everyone's invited. If we win, everyone's invited.
All right, big party with the Rapoli stable guys. I've got Vino Rosso in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
And there's hardly a horse I like better than Vino Rosso all weekend long. He's a fantastic animal. He looked great in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, and he loves 10 furlongs.
He does indeed. We saw him out there this morning looking fantastic in his gallop. Just a couple more days to go until he will go for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And Mike Rapoli's not kidding about that. He does bring about 80 or 90 people to the races, and not just for the Breeders' Cup, anytime that they're out there competing.
Yeah, we need about 80 or 90 Mike Rapolis in this sport, and a lot of these problems that we have to suffer would be going by the wayside. Water trucks out on the racetrack. We've got plenty to come here. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. We'll be back after this. Welcome back, and all week long here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, we have been counting down the Magnificent Seven, the top 7 moments in Breeders' Cup history here at Santa Anita. As this is the last day of Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, it is time to reveal moment number 1.
Fields sink on their way in the Breeders' Cup Classic to the roar of the Santa Anita crowd. Regal Ransom bounced away quickly. Zenyatta is dead last. Zenyatta's dead last early. It's Regal Ransom going on. Gio Ponti, Einstein is right there. Colonel John in the white colours. Summerbird has the red cap in the vanguard too. Rip Van Winkle is on the outside and Twice Over racing right behind them. They tightly grouped and not in a big hurry out on the lead. Then it's Awesome Gem. Gio Ponti's back 4th last. Been followed then by Richard's Kid. Then comes Mind That Bird and Zenyatta is dead last. Zenyatta last, got to be giving them about 10, 11 length start. They grow to the three-quarter pole now in the Classic, and it's Regal Ransom just setting a sensible pace, not in a big hurry out here. Rip Van Winkle now goes up second, and Colonel John scrapes the paint in third. Einstein's right there too. Girolamo, Whitecap far side. Here's Kent DeSormo and Summerbird. They 6 at the rail, just 5 off the leader. Then it comes Twice Over, Awesome Gem, and Gio Ponti's giving them 7-length start. Then it's Richard's Kid. Now here's Zenyatta. Zenyatta is still a good 10-11 off the leaders. And then it's 4 back to Mind That Bird. A half mile to go now in the Classic, and still the leader is Regal Ransom, a length and a half. Rip Van Winkle being sent along after him. Then Colonel John. On the far side, Girolamo. Einstein is right there. Summerbird at the rail. Twice Over is next. Then Awesome Gem. Gio Ponti's behind that. Then Richard's Kid. And now here's Zenyatta. And let's see. Zenyatta has a lot of ground to make up. Zenyatta, if she wins this, she'll be a super horse. She's starting to pick them off, though. Zenyatta going to hook to the outside. Meanwhile, it's Colonel John. Summerbird in the red cap. And Zenyatta's come to the outside. Zenyatta coming flying on the grandstand side. Gio Ponti on the inside. Summerbird is right there. This is unbelievable. Zenyatta, what a performance. One we'll never forget. Looked impossible, but it is Zenyatta still unbeaten under Mike Smith. Gio Ponti second, Summerbird, and then Richard's Kid. What a dramatic performance. One of the most.
That was the greatest moment I've ever witnessed in person, and I doubt I'll ever see anything like it again. Zenyatta's win in the 2009 Breeders' Cup Classic. She's immortalized with a statue here at Santa Anita that will stand for all time. She was the biggest star we've seen here, certainly this century, and one of the biggest stars the sports has ever seen. And I know she won the race on the track, but to be honest, I was in the paddock prior to the Classic, and she won that race in the paddock. She towered over her competition. And in that field, you had the Derby winner, the Arlington Million winner, the Belmont winner, the Gold Cup winner. I mean, it was a fantastic. It was as tough a Classic as we'd ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I know as we've been specifically counting down these 7 moments here at Santa Anita, but as you say, and I'll echo it, that was the greatest horse race I have ever seen with my own 2 eyes, and I could watch it every single day and still feel emotional when I see it because it was so powerful to be here and experience that. I don't know if I'll ever have that feeling again because it was that big, it was that grand, and it's unmatched for me and for a lot of people, I think.
And not to be overshadowed, the 2 greatest moments, I think, in horse racing in the last quarter of a century, the last half a century, Zenyatta in the Classic, and then Tisnow in the Classic in 2001, both Breeders' Cup events. Right. This has become everything that the founders envisioned it to be 36 years ago upon its inception. We are going to take a break. We will have more on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup right after this. Welcome back. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup continues here as we have the final day. And look, right now they're getting ready for racing this afternoon as we have racing just a couple hours away. Some live horses on the track to give it a little bit of a dress rehearsal before the big show tomorrow.
And we might see some schoolers going through there and just a little bit behind us as well. We saw that yesterday. It got pretty busy, actually. It was like the 405 out here with horses schooling. So we may get to see a few of the top class runners here behind us in a couple of moments. And then, yeah, the Players Show starts today. 3 days of the Players Show here, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for Breeders' Cup.
Did you bring a change of clothes? Because I don't know if we can do the Players Show in this.
I did not.
Oh, my.
Did you bring a costume? It's also Halloween.
I know. I've got kids with costumes at home that I hope they got to school okay. At any rate, we continue our coverage here. And, Christina, what are we looking at here?
So a couple nights ago, they hosted the Backstretch Bash.
There's a little bit of a party, right?
For all of the folks that are doing so much hard work on the backside to take care of these horses that will be running this weekend in the Breeders' Cup. I had a chance to go ahead and visit the Backstretch Bash, and I'll tell you, Mike, I could not take the smile off my face. It was a really great time. Take a look.
Hey everyone, I wanted to share one of the most exciting events of the Breeders' Cup with you here tonight. This is the Backstretch Bash, and they are off and running. Take a look behind me. You're going to see one of a few food stations, several members of the executive team at the Breeders' Cup and the Stronach Group here to serve the backstretch workers their dinner and just celebrate all of the hard work that they do with regards to these horses that will be running in the Breeders' Cup. Take a walk with me over this way. There is so much fun stuff going on here. So we're coming this way. Clearly you can see we got a little music, right? Snack tray for everybody. They're doing a little trick-or-treating kind of event for the kids. All the kids coming here with their goodie bags. We've got lots of swag coming your way, courtesy of the Breeders' Cup, and we're also giving away these T-shirts that I'm wearing, courtesy of Costa Hurones and John Sadler, so a big thank you to them for supplying some of the shirts that everyone's going to see. You can walk over with me this way. You'll see some of the sponsors that have made this event possible. Huge thank you to the Safety Net Foundation, Santa Anita, the Breeders' Cup, the Chaplaincy, Red Brand, Pepsi, and all of their sponsors. There's some Breeders' Cup merchandise going down here as well. A little Breeders' Cup t-shirt, Breeders' Cup koozie if you are having a beverage tonight, which I'm sure a lot of people are. As you come back with me this way, this is where some of the Halloween events are going on for the kids. So a little trick-or-treating. You get a bag, lots of candy, lots of kids having fun. They're coming by me right here. There's also face painting and a bouncy castle for the kids over behind me. Say hi, guys. Everybody having a good time. Desserts are back this way as well for the adults. If you're not interested in the candy, there's plenty of desserts over here. And then another food station back at the very beginning of this line here. And we have, again, more members of the Breeders' Cup from some of the local farms. I've actually spotted Mr. Elliott of Windstar Farm. Elliott, you're very involved with the chaplaincy, I know, throughout the country. What makes this event so important tonight?
Just loving on these guys that do all the work. You know, they're the grooms and the hot walkers and the riders. The guys on the backside are the ones that do all the work, really. I mean, we get to be out front, and they're the ones that love the horses, being there with them every day, and it's just neat to just love on them. I know we do a lot with horses and retired horses and things. I don't think we do near enough with the people on the backside.
It's wonderful to celebrate them tonight. Craig Fravel of the Breeders' Cup is behind me. Craig, you will participate in a lot this week, but is this one of the more rewarding events for you?
You know, it's always great to do this for the backstretch workers. They really are the heartbeat of the racetrack, and it's a real privilege to be able to serve them for a change.
We appreciate your time. We appreciate the Breeders' Cup. Everybody supporting the Backstretch Bash. 3 hours of fun for the entire family, from the kids to the grooms, the hot walkers, the exercise riders, everybody that is hands-on with our horses that will be competing this weekend in the World Thoroughbred Championships.
I wouldn't be able to fit in my clothes with that spread. I'd be bursting at the seams. That looked delicious.
It was really fun, and I feel like I was screaming into the microphone. The music was so loud, but just watching the kids that, you know, many of them live here in the barns and are, you know, watching their parents care for these horses come over here, and just their eyes with that bounce house, the face painting, the whole line for trick-or-treating. They had the best time, and their parents were so happy watching them enjoy themselves too. It was really rewarding just to watch it all happen.
Don't forget, this is not a job, it's a lifestyle, and it is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and these people dedicate their lives to the animal, and they do it because of their love of the horse and their love of the game. They're not doing it. I mean, there is financial gain for some in the sport, but certainly not all, and these are the people that we need to take care of.
It's true. And as Elliot Walden was saying, just, taking the time to really appreciate them. And there were a lot of members of the Stronach group, of the Breeders' Cup board. They were the ones doing the serving. They were carrying all the trays. They were serving these meals, pouring the drinks, offering everything to the kids, and really hats off to them, because I think it was very well received and everyone enjoyed themselves.
Look, if you're a procrastinator, you're in luck, because there are a select few tickets left for the Breeders' Cup, but do not wait any longer. Go to breederscup.com. Tickets right now for tickets. We've got Frontrunner, Clockers Corner, and Trackside Marquee Tent still available for Friday. Saturday, Frontrunner and Grandstand and General Admission tickets still available.
Well, and the general admission is $15. So there are some, great opportunities to sit, to have a meal, and to have a table, but don't let cost keep you away.
Right.
We really do hope you can, find the $15 if you can, to just come here and watch these horses. You won't be sorry.
I'm a railbird. I only need the $15. Let's check in with Michelle Yu.
Guys, I'm walking right next to Diamond Oops right now, and Andy Biancone riding him. And can you tell me how you feel? Because a year ago, you didn't think that this horse would be coming to Breeders' Cup.
Honestly, it's just so special just to be here. I mean, like I said, a year ago, he was serving like an 8-month stall rest. And, I mean, even just to be in contention with these horses here is just amazing. I mean, I'm so proud of him. He's absolutely become like my best friend over this summer. And just getting to work with him every day, that's really what the blessing is, just to be around him.
How's he been handling everything here at Breeders' Cup? You guys have been here a couple days now.
He's honestly been very professional. We've traveled a lot this summer, so he kind of likes going on new adventures, new field trips. He's a super smart horse. He's really loving it so far. He's usually pretty calm, pretty relaxed, and he's been pretty geared up. Like, he's feeling, I think, at his best right now.
Thanks for joining us, Andy. Diamond Oops guy's going to be going postward in the dirt mile.
It's Diamond Oops. I think I've called him Diamond Ops every start of his career. Diamond Oops. Get it, Michael. Get it. We're going to take a break. Horses coming onto the track after the most recent renovation. We'll have more on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup after this. Well, there's a look at Kofefi, Kofifer, however you want to say it. a main contender in the Filly Mare Sprint.
She is indeed the daughter of Into Mischief. Little pep in her step. She's flashy out there as she is jogging right now. You know, the inside post, I think, might be... She's going to get a lot of heat because Danush's My Girl is right to her outside. She's going to have to go for it. She does have the natural speed, certainly, to go ahead and take them gate to wire. 2-1 as the morning line choice in the Filly and Mare Sprint. And the only concern I have for her, Mike, is that the only time she has been defeated this year was when returning back off her career best and facing older. That's exactly what's happening to her this weekend. She's returning off a new career best and facing older.
She has a lot to contend with, but she is certainly up to the task. We'll see how she performs on Saturday. We know you love coffee. I hope you've been enjoying the cup of coffee we've been having. And today, Joaquin catches up with track announcer Larry Colmus.
Very pleased to have the voice of the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup on NBC. Track announcer Larry Colmus joins me here at Santa Anita at Clocker's Corner for a cup of coffee. Larry, good morning. How you doing?
I'm good, Joaquin. How are you?
Doing very well. What do you think of the crowd out at Clocker's today?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. Some people that I see all the time in New York, and some people that I only get to see once a year here at the Breeders' Cup. So, man, this is the scene. This is the place to be.
All right, so preparations are pretty much all done. Whether you're pretty much a handicapper, a gambler, trainers, jockeys, horses, preparation is done for the Breeders' Cup. What is your preparation like going in?
Mine's not really done yet. It's never done. You know, there's always a lot to do to get ready for 14 races. Like if you're calling the Kentucky Derby, right? It's one race, and you've been working on it for weeks, studying, doing as much as you can to learn about that one race. We're talking about 14 races now, right? So what I have to do is I make index cards, flashcards of all the jockey silks, and I'll go through those jockey silks on these cards over and over and over until I get them in my head. And you got to do them for 14 different races. So a couple of days out, it's tougher because, you know, which one of those Michael Tabor horses is this? Which one of those Godolphin horses is this? So once the day comes, it's a lot easier. But there's a lot of memorization. And you also want to know as much as you can about the horses, how to pronounce their names, of course.
Yeah. What about 14 races? You're telling 14 stories. Is it a fine line of being prepared but not sounding scripted for you?
Absolutely, yeah. You do want to have the right thing to say at the right moment, but you don't want to sound like you're reading it. Mm-hmm. You know, it wants to come across as something that is spur of the moment. I like to call it a rehearsed ad lib.
Yeah.
You know, just get yourself prepared for the right thing at the right time. You don't want to wing it because you never know what you're going to say if you wing it. But a lot of these races, especially the bigger fields, races like the mile where anything can happen, you don't think about too many lines that you want to say. It's more like just get it right.
You mentioned the horse names. Have you encountered any difficult horse names so far through these 14 races?
Oh, yeah, there's a few. There's definitely a few. I've heard several different pronunciations. I think we're going with Crock of Oak.
Okay.
As of this minute, unless I'm told otherwise.
I'm just going to go with here's the international runner, or here's the two. There's ways around it for us on TVG, but you can't do that.
No, I gotta do it, man. I gotta get it right. My buddy Frank Miramati is going to be calling it for the track, so the two of us have been working together. We had a half-an-hour conversation the other day going over names, and you want to get them right and have a feel for what they're supposed to be, but. Some of these, I'm like, it's a guess. Is it imprimis? Is it imprimus? Is it imprimus? You know, so you're going around asking people at the last minute.
Yeah.
Just trying to get it all right.
Case in point for me, that's the Joe Orsino runner.
Yeah, the Joe Orsino.
In the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
The one with the yellow silks.
Yeah. I was going back, I was watching some old Breeders' Cup races the other day. Had quite a few of your race calls in there as well, and I'm thinking, my gosh, you've had some really tight photos to call since you've become the track announcer for NBC for the Breeders' Cup.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've definitely had a few of those. I guess the most memorable for me would have been the 2013 Breeders' Cup Classic with Mucho Macho Man and Will Take Charge. And the one thing I always remember about that is this exciting finish. You know, here's Mucho Macho Man and declaration of war, and Will Take Charge makes that final run. And from the angle I had, looked like Mucho Macho Man won by a head. Looked like it was no problem. Gary Stevens gives one of these fist pumps. I'm like, Mucho Macho Man. And I'm like, oh, that was exciting. And then I watched the replay. I'm like, Oh no! Whoa! This is a lot closer than I
Were you
think it
pacing
is.
in the announcer's
Oh
booth?
my!
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe it. So I think Travis Stone was there. He was doing the commentary between races, the post parades and that stuff.
Yeah.
And he looked at me. He says, "Did you call that?" I said, "Yeah, I called Mucho Macho Man." And we watched the replay again. I looked at him. I went,
Like, I can't
"Oh
believe it."
no!" And so finally the number goes up. Mucho Macho Man wins. I'm like, I'm a genius.
Bourbon, please.
Exactly. And then I vowed I'll never do that again. And then Songbird and Beholder show up. They hit the wire in the distaff in 2016, and I say, and it's Beholder. And I watch the replay. I'm like, oh no, you didn't do it again.
I told myself I wouldn't do this.
I never do it again. Did it again, and again, paced around, sweat, the whole thing. Beholder's number goes up. I'm like, okay, we're good.
Do you have a favorite Breeders' Cup race call of your own?
Yeah, so it's about the race, not necessarily the race call. It's, the race call is as good as the race itself. But for me, that has to be American Pharoah in the 2015 Breeders' Cup Classic at Keeneland.
And they're into the stretch, and American Pharoah has a 4-length lead at Finesse second, and then it's Frosted, Totalist, and Honor Code. American Pharoah comes into his final furlong, and he's got a 6-length lead as they come to the wire. A Triple Crown winner, a Breeders' Cup winner, a horse of a lifetime.
So that day, we had been through the entire Triple Crown together, and I'm getting to call American Pharoah's last career start. And it's an emotional moment because it's almost like he's yours because, I feel attached to him, throughout that whole campaign, even the Haskell and all those races. And then here we are at Keeneland, and he just dominates this field of older horses. And I thought about, all week, what am I going to say when they come down the stretch? And that morning, I remember waking up, and it popped in my head, and I made a couple of notes. I said, if he gives me the opportunity, it's just simple. It's a Triple Crown winner, a Breeders' Cup winner, a horse of a lifetime. And sure enough, he let me do it. And then I remember at the end, I said he went out in style. And I'm a little overcome by emotion now thinking about it. Just that's how important it was to me. And it was probably, other than his Belmont, the most exciting race I've ever called.
And it's nice that he won by a comfortable margin. It was a couple lengths back to the next horse to give you the spacing to say something.
He was always so good to me.
Yeah,
right. He was so cooperative. The Belmont, he got me to be able to say what I wanted to say in that race. And of course, the Preakness was insane with the rain and the whole thing. But that Breeders' Cup was a great way to end it all for him.
What about a favorite Breeders' Cup race call from another track announcer that you like?
Well, we've had the two guys that called for NBC before me, Tom Durkin and Trevor Denman. They set the bar so freaking high. So there've been so many, and again, it's about the race and it's about the moment. And I remember being here at Santa Anita in 2009, and I was actually in the booth where I'll call the Breeders' Cup this year, but I was just the between race commentator, and Trevor Denman was calling the Breeders' Cup. And the 2009 Breeders' Cup Classic with Zenyatta stands out to me as that race.
And now here's Zenyatta, and let's see. Zenyatta has a lot of ground to make up. Zenyatta, if she wins this, she'll be a super horse. She's starting to pick them off, though. Zenyatta going to hook to the outside. Meanwhile, it's Colonel John Summerbird in the red cap. And Zenyatta's come to the outside. Zenyatta coming flying on the grandstand side. Gio Ponti on the inside. Summerbird is right there. This is unbelievable. Zenyatta, what a performance, one we'll never forget.
So I'm in that booth with the window open. And of course, then I was a Rachel guy. I'm an East Coast guy. I'm a Rachel Alexandra man, And here comes Zenyatta, right? And I'm listening to this crowd, and the roar just louder and louder and louder. And here she comes, and I could hear Trevor in the background, and I hear this is unbelievable. And that's how I'm thinking, too. It really is. And I'm like, damn it, Zenyatta, you won me over. How dare you? And so I became, you can root for both guys. It's okay to root for Zenyatta and Rachel Alexander.
I was fortunate enough to be here as well for that same Breeders' Cup. I was watching on the cement steps, pretty much right in line with the finish line. And I feel like the entire grandstand, everybody in the entire grandstand realized nearly at the exact same time that she was going to win.
Yeah.
As soon as Mike eased out over the hills at Juddmonte's twice over, roughly about 1/8 of a mile to go, she gets out, she has a clear running lane, and I think it just hit everybody. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
she's going to get there.
Right, at the top of the stretch, she couldn't, there's no way she's going to win. And then all of a sudden, this is happening. This is going to go down. And it was so fun, not even having to call the race, just watching it as a fan with really good seat.
Larry, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for having our final cup of coffee. Have a great Breeders' Cup. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Joaquin.
Track announcer Larry Colmas will be calling all 14 Breeders' Cup races on NBC.
I have to say that his call for American Pharoah's Breeders' Cup Classic at Keeneland was probably in my opinion, my favorite Larry Colmas call ever. It was
nice to hear his perspective on so many of the different races too. Because what a unique position to be in, and to be such a part of that memory for so many people forever.
Well, and very candid too, with the Mucho Macho Man and then the Beholder call. Be like, oh God, did I just call that too close? Because those are both great calls. I mean, it turns out excellent, and you hear it and you think, wow, this guy he is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, he could see that.
He's got
and then
some,
he puts
you know
down the
what?
microphone. He's like, oh, he's sweating the photo like the rest of us. That was excellent. Really excellent work there, Joaquin, with that cup of coffee. And it was great to see Larry Colmas. Here's perhaps one of the most underrated horses in the country. Mongolian Groom broke through with the win in the Awesome Again last time out. I think the purveyors of Thorograph would tell you that this horse has been underrated throughout his entire campaign. He's run against the best. He's run solid numbers every time. He's a real Grade 1 racehorse, and he is a legit contender in this year's Breeders' Cup Classic.
I was going to say the same thing. It just feels like, he continues to be overlooked. And the race last out in the Awesome Again, he really showed them what he was made of. He did have easy fractions on the front end, but he finished the race very well. He was 2 1/4 lengths clear. He pulled away from McKenzie. He pulled away from Higher Power. And if you look at the Thorograph, as you said, he's always been right there in the conversation. He did run a new career best in the Awesome Again. And he also on Stats Racelines holds the highest late pace figure. And that meaning that he finishes his races generally quicker than any of the horses in the field.
Owendale, coming in from the barn of Brad Cox, off that Oklahoma Derby win. He was 5th in the Travers. He was 3rd in the Preakness. He's had a pretty good campaign. He's another one, very consistent. And actually, the Travers was the slowest number he ran in 5 races, if you consider the Thorograph quantification of his efforts. Look, he's good. Is he going to have to move forward? Yes. So to run with the likes of these? Yes. But he's a sharp horse.
He looks good out there, too. Son of Into Mischief out of a Bernardini mare. A great pedigree, top and bottom for Owendale. He's running 3rd off the layoff. I think that bodes well for him. Maybe we get a new career best from him. Maybe it was the time on the sidelines that caused kind of the dull effort in the Travers where he was 5th that day. But look, he's a 3-year-old taking on older in this classic. And if you're, for my money, going to find a 3-year-old in this field that I think can do it, I'd go outside with Code of Honor.
Right. And Code of Honor is truly the class of that bunch at this point. You have 2 sensational 3-year-olds, and then you have more of a lunch bucket blue-collar type with Owendale here. But if you're Brad Cox, you couldn't be more pleased. 4 wins this year. He's earned almost $1 million, and he can finish. So the 1 1/4 is a distance he's only gone once. He's shown at 1 1/8 miles that he can certainly finish off his races, so that extra furlong seems to be right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, and I like that because I think you see some development from him. If you look back to sort of December of last year, the beginning of this year, he was much more forwardly placed in those races at the fairgrounds. As he's matured and as he's come on, he's shown that ability to really drop back, make that one run, and finish. That is going to be his best weapon come this weekend if he is going to get the 1 1/4 and if he is going to blow by the rest of this group.
Let's check in now with Michelle Yu.
Guys, today is going to be the White Horse Awards here in the Chandelier Room at Santa Anita Park. I'm joined by Hall of Famer Ramon Dominguez. And Ramon, you're going to be speaking at the awards. Can you tell us a little bit about the White Horse Award?
Sure. The White Horse Award is an award given to an individual or an organization or a group of people sometimes who have performed a heroic act in the horse racing industry, whether to a horse or to an individual. And this year the recipient is Gilbert Cardenas, and it's a great story. A guy who works in the gate, has done it for many, many years, and he was able to basically contribute to saving the life of somebody who was undergoing cardiac arrest. So I'm looking forward to not only hearing his story, but also hearing from the panel.
Why is it so amazing to be able to celebrate people in our industry that it's not just about winning races?
Absolutely. I mean, it is so awesome because we are really a big family regardless of what we do in the sport, whether you are a jockey or you are an owner. We all come together for the common good of really contributing to this beautiful sport, whether it is to the animals, to the horses. But when somebody races to the occasion, like in the case of Gilbert, and is able to really go out of his comfort zone and really help the neighbor, so to speak, it is so awesome because after the fact, we look back and say, wow, that's two tremendous faith to just go and do what he knew what to do, and as a result, he was able to save a life.
I got to ask you, too, just from your own perspective, can you give me a favorite Breeders' Cup moment? We've been talking him down here on the Breakfast at the Works. So what was your favorite Breeders' Cup moment?
There are so many moments, and of course, winning my first Breeders' Cup with Better Talk Now was incredible, and then winning with Hansen was awesome as well because it was such a close finish. And my third one was the year before I retired with a Little Mike, and that was also super cool because it's a horse that defeated the odds, not only going farther than he was believed to be able to go, but also coming from a little off the pace where he was believed to only be able to win on the lead. So those are sort of winning moments, but at the same time, just being here and participating is such an amazing experience because hearing the crowd as we come onto the track is really amazing. I mean, we earned the moment, we earned being able to be here, and it's really humbling and a privilege to be able to participate.
Well, thank you, Ramon, and our biggest congratulations out to Gilbert Cardenas, the winner of this year's White Horse Award.
Such a fantastic award that they give out there, and for such a great reason as well. Ramon Dominguez, this sport has never seen a better ambassador than him.
I was just going to say that, unfortunately he's not out there to be competing anymore, but he's still so involved, and we're lucky for it.
We might have the interview of the week coming up right now as Joaquin Jaime is caught up with Aiden O'Brien.
Aiden O'Brien with 12 Breeders' Cup victories coming in here to Santa Anita. 10 total runners for you this year, Aiden. We'll just touch on a few of them. We'll go with the 2-year-old first in Arizona. Second behind the very talented Pinatubo in his last couple starts. What have you taken from his efforts?
Yeah, no, we're very happy with him. We were very happy with his last run. He won in the Coventry in Ascot over 6 furlongs, and we always thought his horse would get 7 and get a mile. I ran very well in the Dewhurst the last day. He was second. The ground was a little bit soft for him. We think on better ground he'll be better. We always thought this track and trip and ground would suit him well. He's drawn a little bit wide, but he seems in very good form, very straightforward, off-handed horse. So we're hoping that he runs well.
And then you have Fleeting in the filly at Mayor Turf, winless in a few tries this year. What has she shown you to give you the confidence to come to the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, she's a filly. Obviously has been a little bit unlucky this year. She's had a few seconds in a few big races. She's a good traveller, likes to come from back a little bit. She just hasn't had a clear run her last few runs, but has run very big races, and we're very happy with her. She's a tough, hardy, consistent, genuine filly. So we think and hope hopefully she will run well as well.
And in the TVG Mile, you have Circus Maximus, won the Prix de Moulin without blinkers, and now the blinkers are going to go back on for the TVG Mile. Why is that?
Yeah, no, he wore blinkers the last day as well, and it's a help to him. He's lazy. He's very lazy at home. It helps him to concentrate a little bit. Very genuine, but it just helps him. He can get very lazy without him. No, we're very happy with him as well since the Moulin.
And then your Derby winner, Anthony Van Dyke, in the Breeders' Cup Turf. How do you think Anthony Van Dyke stacks up against the likes of Bricks and Mortar for trainer Chad Brown?
We always liked him a lot. We always thought that the track, the trip, the ground, the draw, everything looks right for him. He's in very good form. He'd only one little blot on his copybook this year. That was in the King George, where I shouldn't have run him in very bad ground. He had a very good run the last day in the Irish Champion Stakes, over 1.25 miles. He was third to Magical. Magic Wand was second, so we were delighted with that. We're very happy with him. We think all the things are right for him here, so we're looking forward to seeing him run.
Thank you for the time, Aidan. We appreciate it. Good luck this Breeders' Cup weekend.
Appreciate it, Afian. Thank you very much.
Joaquin, thank you very much, and to Aidan O'Brien for giving us the time as well. I've jotted down my notes from that interview. Great information ahead of championship weekend. A little quiet out there on the main track and the training track right now. We'll come back after a quick timeout here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup.
So for the first week, for 6 days of this week at Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, stayed away from paper handicapping because we had the physical specimen on track that we needed to analyze. But we do want to start getting in. The wagering's going to begin in earnest in no time at all. So let's take a look. 1 day each for each handicapper and each person on the show. A vulnerable favorite and a live long shot. We'll start with you, Christina, with Friday.
Okay, so we're going to start with Friday. Are we going with the vulnerable favorite first or the long shot? The vulnerable favorite. Okay, so for me, and I kind of alluded to this as we were talking throughout the entire juvenile kind of card, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I don't feel like I have a real big, strong hand on it.
Yeah.
And it's down to Dennis's Moment and 8 Rings for a lot of people, and I think it's going to be wagered that way as really a 2-horse race. But I think the rail for Dennis's Moment puts him in a tough position because they did teach him how to rate last time, and I don't think they're going to let him do that again from the rail this time around. With 8 Rings, I thought that, obviously you had the trouble in the Del Mar Futurity. Johnny Velasquez had to really send him away from the gate in the American Pharoah just to get his mind on running and to make sure he was paying attention. So now I want to see how he's going to come out of the gate this time around. Is he going to come quarter horsing out of there himself because he remembers that experience? Or is he going to be able to rate and relax? I want to hope that he can relax off the pace, sit that catbird seat, and finish. So these are young horses, and they're both a little green, I think, and they're still learning. And by virtue of the post position and the antics that unfortunately have befallen both of them, Dennis's Moment clipping heels in his debut, I just want to see how mentally they're able to come on. And I think the juvenile you might end up with kind of a wacky 20-1 shot in there.
Okay, so where do we find the value play then?
So the value play I think, is in the juvenile turf a little bit earlier on the day. And a lot of eyes are going to be clearly on Arizona for Aidan O'Brien. I think Fort Myers is just as dangerous, and here's why. Look at his races on the synthetic and look at his races on the turf. He is 2 for 2 on synthetic. He looks like a different horse. He's a little bit bigger, stronger of a type than what you would normally see coming over from Europe. But when he got on the synthetic, he was so nimble and athletic. He darted around, found a seam, and was able to accelerate in a jump. The thing that horses like about synthetic is that spring that they get over the ground. He's going to get that here. He is going to love this firm turf course. So I would have to include both Aidan O'Brien horses on any tickets.
All right, so let's keep with Friday, but let's move to Joaquin Jaime. He's been well groomed for this segment. How about your vulnerable favorite on Friday?
Well, guys, for my vulnerable favorite, I'm going to look to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. I'm going to go to Donna Veloce. Impressive win in her lone career start, 91 Beyer, 9-length victory, but facing winners for the first time. Of course, Grade 1 company for the first time. She's light on experience. She has the rail draw. There's other speed. I just think there's a couple other directions to go in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So I'll say that Donna Veloce would be my vulnerable favorite for the Friday racing program. And then as we look to my price player, my value play, I'll stay with the 2-year-olds on Friday, but I'm going to go to the turf, and that's going to be for trainer Brendan Walsh, and that is going to be Vitalogy for me. Previously conditioned by Joseph O'Brien, has had 2 starts here in North America, made his North American debut over yielding ground in the Grade 1 Summer Stakes at Woodbine, and Decorated Invader, he beat him on the square. They both broke a step slowly, but I don't think he had the cleanest running lane in the stretch up at Woodbine when he finished third, only defeated a length and 3/4. Watching that replay and then watching his most recent start at Keeneland in the Grade 3 Bourbon Stakes, got no favors in the post draw. Post 14 and a field of 14. He broke well. Javier took him back that day, incredibly wide on the far turn. But the turn of foot that he showed me in the Bourbon Stakes from the Summer Stakes has shown me that he really picked up his game from one start to the next. Much better draw on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. He's going to be in post position number 5 for trainer Brendan Walsh. Javier Castellano is going to be back aboard. He is 10-1 on the morning line, so I'll take Vitalogy as my price play in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Caleb, what do you think?
Well, Joaquin, I guess we can go partners on Friday because my beatable favorite's also going to be Donna Veloce. And the first race was so incredible, winning by that huge margin. But if we can be a little bit more critical, first of all, I'm questioning the field. The second choice in that race blew the brake. Okay, once the Baffert missed the break, now Donna Veloce is just out here having fun and showing off. The other horses in that short field that had races, they had distant finishes, but they weren't really knocking at the door for a win. So I've just seen too many of these horses that have one start. It's so flashy. I mean, I can go back to a couple weeks ago at Keeneland, the Lexus Raven Run. There was a horse named Indian Pride. She looked like some type of horse first out, but she only had one start and one win. They bet her into oblivion. She was even money in a big field, and horses were in the Oaks and Graded Stakes races. She ran well, but she finished third. These horses just aren't good bets. And I also look at the pace standpoint for Donna Veloce. Let's not forget that Wicked Whisper's in there. These horses are the same to me. They're both undefeated. They both won Gate to Wire, and they've both never gone 2 turns. And at some point, these horses are going to look each other in the eye. And I'm just really questioning this move for Donna Veloce. So that's going to be my beatable favorite from the rail in the Juvenile Fillies Dirt. My price play also on the rail, this time in the Juveniles Philly Turf. And I'm talking about living in the past, right? This is a horse that I haven't even heard really from the European pundits give a chance at 15-1 the line. What I like about the 1 in the Juvenile Fillies Turf is the setup. This horse has got a ton of speed. And when I've watched her races in Europe, she is game and she loves having the lead. Look at the race. Where's the other speed at? Right? Abscon and Fair Maiden, they were up and on the lead, but in a slow-paced race at Woodbine. Sweet Melania, she's forward, but she likes stalking, and she's been close to slow paces. So I look at this one horse, look at the times that Daniel Tudhope has ridden the 1 living in the past. They go to the front. So I see a long shot with hidden speed and hidden ability that's going to get a potential easy lead at a huge number here from the fence at Santa Anita. I'll take Living in the Past as my long shot there in the Juvenile Fillies Turf. Michelle, how about you?
Well, Caleb, I'm along with you and Joaquin. I also think that Donna Veloce is going to be the vulnerable favorite. You guys have listed the majority of the reasons why, but I also want to add to that, if you go back and watch the race, she really didn't extend herself at all. I think at the top of the lane, Flavien let her run maybe 4 strides, and then he kind of geared her down. Well, this is a really big ask, like for all the reasons of first time versus winners, first time going a route, but also she hasn't really faced any throw down, look me in the eye competition. And I think that, come race day, that could really be an adverse reason, against her. So I like another horse in that race, and I do like Wicked Whisper. I know, Caleb, you think that her and Donna Veloce are the same type of horse that want to go to the front, but I have just really been impressed with Wicked Whisper here on track. I've watched her schooling. I think she looks amazing. I like the fact that she's actually never raced at a track that she has worked at. If you look, she schooled at Oklahoma, and then she's worked on the Belmont training track, but never on the main track, and she was still able to win races there very impressively. The fact that she has been here and been able to train over the surface, I think can only move her forward. I also really love the progression. Generally, I say 2 sprints to a route would be ideal, but the way that she went 6 furlongs to the 1-turn mile at Belmont to the 2-turn distance here, I think is going to be an excellent progression for her. So while she's not a huge price, I definitely like her for my Friday upset horse, guys.
Okay, good to know. Can I pick
Are you on the
Donna
same team?
Veloce too? So my vulnerable favorite is Donna Veloce. Let me see. It's only her second start. Did they say that?
They said
she
that.
drew the rail. Did they say
said
that? What else? It's first time 2 turns. Did they say that?
They said that. What else you got?
Simon Callahan owes me money. Did they say? No, I'm kidding. He doesn't. He doesn't owe me anything.
This race owes him something, though, because he's had the post-time favorite the last 2 years. Maybe this is the one that breaks through.
Okay, so I'll just talk about my my value play. I'm going with Tango in the Juvenile Fillies turf, and hear me out. I think everything kind of came together for her at the Curl last time out when she won by 6 lengths. Now, that was over a very heavy turf course, so whether or not she will like the firm going is a bit of a question, but I'll tell you that she's never had it. She's had good turf courses, which about as close as she's going to see. If she does take to it, and the surfaces, you're talking about a filly who's gotten faster with each and every start.
Right.
She's getting better. She's got 8 starts under her belt. She's taking on horses that have 2, 3, 4. Some might look at it as a negative as, well, we kind of know what she is, but she's still a 2-year-old. She's moving forward. I think she's going to like the 2 turns, even though, some of these races are going to be far different configuration. I think that's going to help her in her running style. She gets Lasix for the first time, and I have a long shot who, she's 10-1. I don't think she gets that much play at all.
She'll be higher than that.
And I think Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore have a live one here in the Juvenile Fillies turf. We know how strong the Europeans are, and I'm just really not sold on anyone in that field. I think the Juvenile Fillies turf is one of the more wide open races that we have on Friday. So I'm going to take a horse that I think you're going to get every bit of that price.
I think you're going to get probably a 7-2 post-time favorite in that race. I
Right.
think you're going to get a price no matter who you like.
Right, and unless people just start jumping on the Aidan O'Brien bandwagon, which they are likely to do on times on the Breeders' Cup Friday, then I think you get every bit of that. When we return, we will continue our bet against and our value plays for Breeders' Cup Saturday. It's starting to warm up. It's not as frigid here. It's a lovely day in Southern California as the Breeders' Cup begins in earnest tomorrow. Welcome back. We've got horses schooling. We've got Breeders' Cup on the horizon. It is breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, and it is the final edition of Breakfast at the Cup. And we've only got about an hour left. My, how time flies when you're having fun. I liked what we did for Friday so much. Let's do it for Saturday. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay, but we're not going to start with you. You're just going to
Can
have
we
to sit
still
back.
go ladies first, though?
Yes. And by that, we will start with Michelle Yu. Michelle, give us your vulnerable favorites on Breeders' Cup Saturday.
Well, my vulnerable favorite is going to be Matoli in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. You know, taking a look at him, he was a clear winner last time out, but he got beat 2 starts back in the Vanderbilt. He didn't have a great start, albeit, so he does have an excuse. But since then, you know, he backed it up with a win in the 4-go, but we haven't seen him since August. They obviously gave him a stiff workout here that everyone's been talking about, but remember, there was also a couple of little hiccups as far as the work goes, and I just think it's a race that is so stacked with horses that are as good as him, some that have already beaten him, and there's going to be so much pace that while he is relatively versatile, I feel like he could lay a little bit off of it. I'm still convinced that he does his best running on the front end, so I'm going to try and beat him in there. So to me, the price play is going to be Engage, his stablemate, or as Scott Blasi calls him, Engage. I just really like this horse, how he's been training out here. I think that he is definitely versatile, right? He can come from a little bit farther off. If for some reason he winds up in a nice trip near the front end, I feel like he can still hang on. This distance, I feel like, is one of his ideal distances, and he has just looked tremendous to me. I loved his race at Keeneland last time out, and should he get, in my mind, which would be the ideal trip where he comes from off the pace and a little bit wide, just like that he did in Keeneland, we have seen the track play very favorably to that kind of running style the last week here at Santa Anita. I would love to see him slingshot off the turn and motor down the middle and catch Matoli right there on the wire. So that's my 15-1 upset price play for a Saturday. Caleb, what think you?
Michelle, we're all going to look bad or good together because my vulnerable favorite, believe it or not, considering how good he's worked, is going to be Matoli. And my thing with Matoli, he's so big and strong. Like Mike Joyce called him, I'm agreeing. He looks like Adonis out here. But his 3 Grade 1 wins have come at 7 furlongs and a mile. And when I look at Matoli, I'm really questioning his chief competition. Number 1, Imperial Hint. The last time they faced each other, it's not like Imperial Hint just snuck by him by 3/4 of a length. He beat him by 7.5 lengths. 7.5 lengths, and Imperial Hint's double the price. The other competitor, Chancelot, I believe is a full length faster than Matoli. He's never been in a race, Matoli, where there's a horse that's a full length faster than him through 1/4.5 mile. And that's Chancelot. So he's got to deal with one horse just beat him by 7. He's got to deal with one horse that's a length or length and a half faster than him early. And I just don't know where that puts him early on in this race as your heavy favorite in the sprint. So Matoli for me, the vulnerable favorite. I'm going to go for the dirt mile here for my price play, and that's going to be Diamond Oops, right? Diamond Oops, I didn't even know who this horse was a couple of months ago, but look at how he's come along, right? He reminds me a little bit of the last Breeders' Cup dirt mile winner here at Santa Anita, Tam Marcuse. Tam Marcuse was coming off back-to-back second-place efforts. Tam Marcuse had a big second at Saratoga in the Grade 1. He was second to AP Indian. And when you look at this horse, he stretched out last time in the Shadwell, and he got the mile. He got the distance, right? This horse has always had so much ability. Look at him before that long break. We heard from Bian Cohen earlier. He took 8 months off. Before the 8-month layoff, he was living in 75 Beyer land. After the 8-month layoff, now he's firing high 90s and 100s and looks very live. And one last thing about Diamond Oops. Look at his mom. She was a fast sprinter, but the first time she went long in the dirt, she won a stakes race and pulled away from the field. There's some hidden stamina and precocity in this breeding, if you ask me. Diamond Oops looks live. Bian Cohen and Lay Proof feels like a throwback. I'll make him my top price play. Joaquin, what do you say?
Okay, I'm going to go to the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mayor Sprint. My horse that I'm going to play against, my favorite that I'm going to play against in that race is going to be the horse that drew the inside, and that is going to be Cafefe. Rail draw, other speed in that race, and she faces older horses. She only has one start against older horses. That was a few races ago at Churchill Downs, and the horse that beat her that day was Mia Mischief. Well, if you look through some common running lines, Mia Mischief was defeated by both Come Dancing and Spice Perfection, who are also in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mayor Sprint this year. So I'll play against Covfefe. I'm going to look all the way towards the outside with the 9 in Spice Perfection. I thought that was a giant race for her last start for trainer Peter Miller at Keeneland in the Grade 2 TCA Stakes. And keep in mind, that was off a 5-month layoff. The stumble and the bobble was legit. She took a few strides and got off to a very bad beginning, then steadily moved up down the backstretch. And I thought it was really impressive in the stretch where she had to split horses just past the 8th pole and a hole that was closing very, very rapidly. Javier split horses, and then she would go on to win by just a head. It was a very, very hard-fought victory, but she was much the best in the Grade 2 TCA Stakes in her last start. So, guys, I will play against Covfefe in the Filly and Mare Sprint. I'll put my check mark next to the 9, Spice Perfection.
All right, Christina, let's do it. Your Saturday vulnerable favorite.
I'm on the same horse as far as the vulnerable favorite goes as Joaquin Covfefe. I mentioned it earlier. Not only is she taking on older again, but she's coming off a career best speed figure. That's the circumstance that got her beat in the Roxelana, and I think the draw down at the rail just kind of hammers that point home a little bit more for her, unfortunately. As far as my price goes, and I think you're going to get a very big price on this horse, I'll go to the Turf Sprint. Imprimis is interesting to me. If you look back to his races in March and April, he's clearly good enough to beat these horses. They went to Royal Ascot with him for the King's Stand. He didn't like the ground that day. And then I think he's had 2 very legitimate excuses in his last few races. In the Turf Sprint at Kentucky Downs, he just didn't take to that undulating course, and he's a big, strong type of horse, just real stoutly built. And you could tell he was bobbling a little and just never got his feet underneath him. He also was pinched and had a ton of traffic last time out in the Woodford. So look farther down. Be kind of forgiving with Imprimis. Go back to the spring. He's good enough to win the race.
Okay, so I'll close this segment out with echoing the sentiments. I seem to be copying everybody. I promise I did my work at home all by myself. I think Whitmore is a vulnerable favorite, and I have nothing bad to say about Whitmore, and I'm not even going to go to the Imperial Hint Chancelot route. It's just the deepest field in the sprint is perhaps any race in the Breeders' Cup this year. Forget about those other horses. What about the fact that Firenze Fire actually ran a better thoroughgraph figure last time out in the Vosburg when finishing second to Imperial Hint than Imperial Hint did winning? And then you go back to Whitmore, who won or was in the Breeders' Cup sprint last year, losing to Roy H. He's got a great pattern. He has that back class. He hasn't shown it so far in 2019, but it looks the way he's training, he's coming up to his best race. We spoke of the fact that nobody seems to be talking about Catalina Cruiser, who here in California at sprint distances and short 2-turn races is virtually unbeatable. I don't have anything bad to say about Matoli, and let's be honest, I think he's the sexiest equine alive. But I just think the task is too tall for him to be a short price in it. As far as my value play, it's going to be Fanny Logan. If someone's going to beat Sister Charlie, you mentioned maybe it's a horse that gets by her on the outside that she doesn't see. Fanny Logan's going to be tracking somewhere mid-pack. That's her running style. But ever since they added linkers, she has just gotten better and better. Her numbers don't quite stack up, but those are European numbers. And even the thoroughgraph, they're European numbers. Let's see what she runs here in the States. I think she's going to run a giant race. We'll see if it's good enough to beat Sister Charlie. But I know she's coming up to a big one. Also, I've been watching this program called Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, and a very smart man named Simon Bray said he loved the way she looked coming in.
Your brother-in-law?
Yes, that one, the same guy.
Simon Bray.
So that is a look at our price plays, vulnerable favorites for Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday.
I'm trying to see who's coming at us right now. We've got some schoolers coming, so if you keep an eye sort of behind us, you're going to see quite a few of the Breeders' Cup contenders. I believe this is the Todd Pletcher crew coming through. I see some Blue Wraps. We might have a few horses from Baffert's Barn coming your way, so it's going to be some good viewing here and down in the Saddling Barn as they're schooling.
So, tons of guaranteed money on Friday. Guaranteed early pick 5 at $500,000. The late pick 5, which is all the Breeders' Cup races, guaranteed at $1 million. And the All Breeders' Cup pick 4 is guaranteed at $1 million as well. And then the Ultra pick 6, a $1 minimum on Saturday. You can also bet the late pick 5 with a $2 million guarantee. The pick 4 with a $2 million guarantee as well. That's going to do it. Thank you for joining us all week long. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. Like we started the show by saying, we were the last chocolate in the Advent calendar. Tomorrow begins 2 days of Christmas in the Sports of Kings. It was a fun morning here on track. Got some horses getting squirrely, but none worse for the wear. Shecky Shabazz getting shecky with it, but he'll be okay as they head back to the barn. All the preparations are done. Now it is time to sit back, enjoy, and fire away as the Coolmore horses made their way onto the track to the tune of the Imperial March, at least in our heads, and the Aidan O'Brien runners strutting their stuff on the backstretch here at Santa Anita in preparation for the Breeders' Cup World Championships November 1st and 2nd right here at Santa Anita.